Kang Hyunmoo finds himself in hell. He doesn't even survive for 40 seconds or understand what's going on before he starts to choke. The crystal dust that covers everything here turns out to be poisonous and begins to poison and paralyze him. Hyunmoo can't move and clings to life with his last breath, but still dies there. The next moment, he wakes up in the same place, not understanding what happened. Noticing those damn crystals around him again, he runs as far as he can, but after 5 minutes he suffocates and dies the same way. He is revived again at the starting point and tries to run again, but a goblin quickly kills him with one blow. Over the next 13 attempts, Hyunmoo tries everything he can, but the result is always the same. Finally, on the 14th attempt, he just sits down, relaxes, and begins to breathe deeply. He continues to die again and again, but with each attempt, his lifetime increases. On his 28th attempt, he finally receives a notification from the system that the amount of poison in his blood has reached a critical point, and he has acquired the rare skill Poisoned Blood. With it, Hyunmoo is now immune to poison damage. This means that in this hell, he can gain new skills and level up his stats according to what he does. With immunity to poison, he finally takes a closer look at the moss crystals. He notices that they're much bigger and better than the ones he gathered at his lowly job. They probably worth millions each. Just a few days ago, he was an ordinary trash collector. He rummaged through the dirt of the dungeons in search of moss crystals, and for this dangerous work, he received mere pennies that were not enough for anything. But he had no other choice. Probably the only person who was ever good to him was his beautiful colleague Yu Min, but she was only a faint ray of light in his hopeless life. It all began nearly 30 years ago, when the world changed with the sudden appearance of dungeons, creating an era where only the awakened and gifted mattered. As a zero-star awakener, Hyunmoo was destined for a life of powerlessness, with no chance of awakening. But one day, an attorney named Robert Lee showed up and gave Hyunmoo a necklace left behind by his dad. At home, he turned on the TV while fidgeting with the necklace. Hyunmoo fixated on the man on the screen, Lee Ji-tae. He was wealthy, popular, and effortlessly handsome. His special powers set him apart from others. Hyunmoo couldn't help comparing. Ji-tae had everything, while all he had was a useless stone necklace. He thought that if life ever handed him a chance, he would seize it without hesitation and make it matter. In frustration, he grabbed the stone tightly, and it began to shine, rays of light bursting through his fingers. In a blink, the stone threw him into this hell world. Back in the present, Hyunmoo collects crystals and places them in his inventory, but as soon as he does, a new problem appears. A system alert announces that level 3 mosquitoes have appeared. He immediately breaks into a run, trying to escape the swarm. As he runs, he can feel his abilities increasing due to his title of being Hell's strongest. Hyunmoo feels a sharp sting as a mosquito the size of his palm sits on his hand. He screams in agony as more mosquitoes fly into his mouth. Suddenly, there's an explosion, and he dies, having survived for 6 hours and 18 minutes. He wakes up to the ding of a level up. Turns out, he finished a quest, poisoned over 100 monsters at once, and his poisonous blood skill gets stronger. He slowly pieces it together. The mosquitoes had drunk his blood and died from the poison he has in his blood. Afterwards, he falls ill. The system informs his health will continue to drain as a result. Furious, he throws a fit, picking up a chair and smashing it to pieces. Just then, a glowing notification materializes. He has gained a new normal skill, dismantling. However, the illness keeps spreading, and his health drops to below 10%. But right at that moment, his title as the last survivor in hell activates, regenerating his health. One by one, abnormalities begin to heal, and the system confirms his recovery. He decides to test out the new skill. Grabbing another chair by its legs, he activates the dismantling skill. In just a moment, the chair disassembles into each of its parts. A thought hits him. If destroying something gave him a skill, then maybe making something would too. He picks up a long wooden pole, hammering a nail into it, trying to shape it into a weapon. The notification he had been waiting for pops up, indicating that he unlocked the crafting skill. Now that he has crafting, with new determination, he sets his mind on building a shelter. Sitting on the floor, a piece of crystal moss hovers in his hands. Hyunmoo knows he needs to make a shelter as quickly as possible to survive here. While he's busy exploring his newly activated inventory, a newspaper rustles beneath his foot. He picks it up as he tries to read it. The system responds that he has acquired another common skill, language. Scanning the text, a name catches his eye, Ji-tae Lee. Hyunmoo wonders if it's the same Ji-tae Lee from the Taesong Guild. This makes him think that this ruined place could be his actual world, just fallen apart. He turns to the piles of dead mosquitoes on the floor and uses the dismantle skill. A while later, his hard work finally pays off. New materials appear, mosquito wings, stingers, and mosquito blood. He collects them, activates the production skill, and receives a rare item, Hell Dart. Turning the dart over in his hands, he guesses it's something you throw once and use up. Out of curiosity, he gets ready to dismantle more mosquitoes and uses the crafting skill. An egg summons in his hand. As he inspects it, another notification appears, disclosing a 50% chance for the egg's survival. For now, Hyunmoo decides to keep it safe, slipping it into his pocket. Hyunmoo is then jolted by a sudden loud noise. He peers behind the shelter's wall to investigate. Standing across a window is a green-skinned eerie figure. It holds a heavy blade in one hand and wears a red cap. A pair of yellow eyes scan the inside of the shelter and lock onto Hyunmoo's frozen gaze. A goblin. It lunges forward, swaying its sword at him. He ducks down just in time, the blade crashing into the stone where Hyunmoo's head had just been. Flustered, he spots a staircase nearby. Panic fuels his legs as he breaks into a sprint, the goblin rushing after him. Hyunmoo remembers the weapon he made. Immediately, he pulls a wooden pole from his inventory and swings it at the goblin. The pole crashes against the goblin's side, knocking it off balance. The creature snarls as it pushes itself back up. Right then, notification flashes revealing the creature's identity. Redcap Goblin, level 20. The goblin lunges again, swinging its blade in a wide arc which Hyunmoo barely dodges. He strikes back with the wooden pole, but the goblin moves too quickly. With one precise slash, it snaps the pole in half. The goblin's eyes gleam with excitement and mutters something Hyunmoo couldn't understand. The creature's ability to speak stuns him. That second of distraction cost him. With frightening speed, the goblin slashes his chest. Barely able to stand, Hyunmoo pulls out a few hell darts from his inventory, clutching the wound that runs from his shoulder to his waist. He throws them straight at the goblin. The goblin slashes the darts in half within a flash, but one dart manages to hit its hand. Its hand starts to swell with blisters. Without a second thought, the creature severs its own hand. Hyunmoo connects the dots. Some of his blood must have gotten on the dart when he threw it, which must have caused poisoning to the goblin's hand. The goblin vanishes from sight. Suddenly, he hears a swoosh of air behind him. Looking up, he sees the goblin mid-air, sword aimed straight at him. Blood bursts from his body as the goblin's blade cuts through him and he falls to the ground. As the goblin begins to walk away, it mutters that it thought all humans were dead. Just then, as Hyunmoo makes out the goblin's words, a system ding rings in his ears. A notification flashes before his eyes, alerting him that his health has dropped below 10%. The regeneration perk he got from the Last Survivor title activates. The wound on his chest heals quickly and completely. Another message appears informing him about the completion of his quest by surviving the first night. He receives a silver box as a reward. The silver box upgrades to a gold box as a result of compensation for the level to difficulty contrast. An announcement surfaces, permitting him to use the hearthstone to return back, until the next quest starts in 14 days. Hyunmoo clutches the stone. It quickly begins to glow, bringing him back to his original world. The next time he opens his eyes, he hears the sound of rain hitting the ground. Jolting upright, he feels elated with happiness upon his return. His thoughts drift towards the necklace. Feeling angry at his father, he grabs it to throw it, but stops as memories of hell rush back. Yumin spots Hyunmoo outside the treatment plant and rushes over to him, scolding him for being too close to its entrance. Worried about mana poisoning, she wraps him in her raincoat. She pulls him inside, directing him to the bathroom and handing him a mana decontaminant. Hyunmoo attempts to decline, but she scolds him, emphasizing the toxicity of crystal moss for commoners. After stepping out of the shower, Hyunmoo casually asks for the date. Yumin replies that it's September 11th, and mentions he hasn't shown up for work in 2 days. Despite it only being 2 days, to Hyunmoo, it feels like 3 years since he was in hell. His thoughts swirl as he recalls being at home before being pulled to hell, only to return to the same place in the actual world. Seeing as his old clothes are contaminated, she leaves to get him clean ones. Suddenly a screen opens up displaying the items in his inventory. It shows some nailed poles that he had made as a weapon, crystal moss that he managed to collect, and a golden box he got as a reward. His SSS level luck increases the quality of the contents of the box as he taps it. A number of tarot cards arise from it. Some cards burn into ashes, and only one remained titled Battle Helper, granting him a legendary skill. There were only 7 people in the world to have any legendary skills. Now he's the 8th, though he doesn't have a clue what this skill does. Yumin returns with fresh clothes for him. As he is getting dressed, she notices his good health even after being contaminated. She inquires whether he's an awakened, since only they are immune to mana poisoning, to which Hyunmoo admits that he recently acquired powers. Recognizing her expertise on the crystal, he shows her a kilogram of the rare crystal moss he collected to determine its worth. Her jaw drops open in disbelief upon inspecting the piece. Taken aback by the crystal's 5-star quality, she asks him where it came from. Yumin is a collector in the mines for the sole purpose of gathering crystal moss for her research. Hyunmoo establishes if she wants to study the crystal, she needs to help him find a way to sell it. She explains that the large size would make them tough to sell. Hearing this, he snaps the piece in half. Outraged by his careless behavior toward such a valuable item, she lashes out at him. Hyunmoo admits that he has even bigger pieces of crystal moss to calm her down. He lays out the 2 conditions he wants her to agree on. His identity as the one to collect it, and the origin of this crystal to be kept a secret. These conditions set her off again as he can't comprehend the quality of the high-purity crystal, which can only be obtained from the first ever dungeon that was opened. He tells her the next steps depend on how well the items sell. As he grabs his bag of contaminated clothes, she asks him to stay the night. The next morning, she leaves to meet a buyer. A week later, worried about the safety of the crystal moss, Hyunmoo joins her to meet the buyer, who also promises to purchase the remaining moss. The buyer, Park Hwiso, introduces himself and offers a firm handshake. Hyunmoo feels the strength in his grip, realizing that if the man were to attack, defending would be difficult. The system activates Hyunmoo's Hell's Strongest title as his fight instinct kicks in. Park Hwiso inspects the crystal and agrees to the trade. Before leaving, he bows to Hyunmoo, leaving him to wonder the sketchy man has figured out his secret. After the man leaves, Yumin teases Hyunmoo for being paranoid, and then shows him a notification confirming the payment. Then it is revealed that the buyer collects crystal moss for Ji Tae Lee, the renowned hunter from the Taeseong clan. As they examine a blood-stained crystal, they discuss how the hunter, who must have gathered such a pure crystal from a 5-star dungeon, won't be able to remain in hiding for much longer. Lee Ji-tae wonders if the hunter might be from a foreign clan. He orders Park Hwiso to investigate the sources of the crystals, Yu-min and her partner, Hyunmoo. After days of constant training, his strength cap increases. While he could easily do over 1,000 pull-ups in the real world, even a few in hell quickly drain his energy. Exhausted on the ground, he wonders how long he's been here. A message shows up showing time of 18 hours before the next quest. Hyunmoo has now gotten hold of how things work around here. Time passes in the real world as well as he spends his days in hell. The only thing that frustrates him is not understanding why he wakes up in a different location each time. A readout reveals that the legendary Battle Helper skill predicts and records his movements, enhancing his accuracy. It feels like an illegal cheat in a game, but he knows he won't survive hell without it. He activates the skill and tests it on a punching bag. As he throws punches, he feels his accuracy gradually improving, allowing him to focus on a single spot. Ecstatic, he realizes the skill is reinforcing the information it's learned about his movements. At that moment, a new quest begins. A beginner's friend, with the objective of eliminating all 5 scarecrows. Bewildered, he wonders if a beginner's quest is meant as an insult, considering he's already at level 7. Hyunmoo roams around in hell searching for the scarecrows. Then he spots some creepy skeleton-like figures frozen in place like mannequins. A hovering notification projects the beginner scarecrow's level as unknown. An unsettling image of them coming to life and crawling like spiders flashes through his mind. Conjuring a hell dart from his inventory, he throws it at a scarecrow, but the mannequins remain completely still. He strikes one with full force, yet it doesn't budge. Suddenly, the eerie creatures come to life, their eyes glowing red with lasers. A message flashes, disclosing their level to be 7, matching Hyunmoo's own. As they begin advancing, he feels relieved to find their speed slower than that of goblins. On Earth, a rank of 7 signifies 5 or more years of experience, but here in Hell, it's considered a beginner's rank. Channeling his legendary skill, he prepares to obliterate them all. Surrounded by the horde, sweat beads on his forehead as he quickly formulates a strategy to take them all on at once. Without warning, a scarecrow charges at him. He retaliates with a firm punch, but another jumps at him, locking him in a chokehold. As the scarecrow's grip loosens, Hyunmoo lands a harsh blow to the side of its face. Cracks form and its skin begins to peel off in pieces. Just then, a system update signals the start of the second level. 2 scarecrows restrain his arms, while the other 2 pin his legs. The 5th charges at him, puncturing his ribs. Hyunmoo howls in pain as the system notifies him of increased physical strength, hemorrhage resistance, and pain tolerance. Despite the boosts, his health bar drops below the critical point. Resurrected by the Last Survivor perk, he summons a weapon made of brittle timber, now amplified with attack power. He strikes with his weapon, breaking off a scarecrow's limb, but it quickly regenerates. The system updates again, and the scarecrows are equipped with heavy steel weapons. In a flash, they kill Hyunmoo after his 5 days of survival. His attempts to fight are in vain as he's defeated every time. Frustrated, he ties 4 scarecrows to a pillar with rope to take them on one by one. Using his legendary Battle Helper, he zeroes in on each creature's core to break it. Unable to break the core, his combat level increases to 3. Soon after, he meets his end in brutal ways. His neck is snapped, a kick to the face, a somersault through the air, tossed like a football, and finally, his neck is twisted and broken with a punch. Regaining his motivation, he pounces at the enemy, throwing a punch that it dodges. He follows with a kick that cracks its face. The system updates, and sparring level 4 begins. In the blink of an eye, 2 fingers jab forward at lightning speed, poking his eyes. He crashes into the wall, clutching his eyes. The creature shrieks and bites into his leg like a rabid dog, and just like that, he dies again. It takes Hyunmoo 9 rounds to figure out 3 game-changing facts. First, the battle stops at level 4, meaning no new fight variations. Second, since the movement patterns are fixed, they pause to recalibrate if there's an unexpected change. Lastly, if they take significant damage, their movement halts. After several successful brawls, he finally completes the quest. Crying out in happiness, he looks back at the fallen scarecrows in satisfaction. Despite being at the same level as his opponents, his hands tremble. Fighting them felt like facing someone at the rank of a coach, not a beginner. He soon receives a reward boosted by his SSS level luck, the Cradle of Heaven. A golden cloth materializes in his hands, and a glowing screen displays its properties, boosting growth and restoring damage. Hoping it grants him power, he wraps it around his head, but nothing happens. The item proves useless, as he resurrects with full health every time. For a while he considers selling it, thinking a legendary item must hold great value in the real world. Then, he spots the egg he obtained from dismantling the mosquito remains. Covering it with the cloth, he waits in silence. After a few moments, the egg bursts open. As he wonders what kind of monster might emerge from the egg, all of a sudden, a blinding surge of light bursts forth, revealing a small, delicate creature curled in a fetal position. The tiny being blinks open its red eyes and lets out a sleepy stretch. Aiming a finger at her, he comments on her tiny size. The fairy, hungry, grabs his finger and sinks her teeth into it. He yanks his finger back, sending her tumbling to the ground. The starving fairy sits up, and Hyunmoo offers her a candy, but she refuses. When he asks what she wants to eat, she points at him. Her wings flutter as she settles on his arm, drinking his blood. He nudges her to stop, but the fairy insists she's trying to stop his bleeding and begins licking where she had sank her straw. The fairy teases him, calling him her slave. He squeezes her to make her behave and demands her identity. She's confused at first, but then remembers she's meant to appear at the world's end to devour all living things. Hyunmoo wonders if he should just kill her. Hyunmoo dismisses her declaration as a joke given her tiny size, but as he scrutinizes her, he's shocked to find she's immune to his poisonous blood, and her lack of hostility prevents him from activating his battle helper skill. Unable to fight or gauge her skill level, Hyunmoo decides to tame her as a pet. He names her Renian, a choice the savage little fairy approves of, as it resembles the harbinger of doom in fairy language. Knowing the fairy will follow him everywhere, Hyunmoo sets one condition: she must never eat a human, especially not him. However, he agrees to let her drink his blood. Renian looks at the scattered bodies and asks if they're human. Hyunmoo grins in satisfaction, but then sees a torn scarecrow and panics, unsure if he caused it. An alert pops up, adding the Valiant Energy trait to his Battle Helper skill. Hyunmoo activates the skill and tests the newfound trait on a scarecrow, shattering its body into pieces. Out of nowhere, the enemies come back into life, classifying Hyunmoo as a superhuman and deactivating the lock. Baffled by his new status, he clenches his fists looking for any trouble. Instead, the scarecrow in front of him points to a wall where broken furniture is piled up. As they move closer, the fairy alerts him to a rich fragrance arising from that direction. There they discover a skeleton seated in an office chair, its head down, hand resting on a letter. The fairy quickly begins biting a bone from its hand and Hyunmoo tells her off. He reads the letter, dated 3 years after the world hit nightmare level. Children born since then died from toxic air, and even awakened talents couldn't survive, pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. It becomes apparent to him that this world is the future version of his own. At the end, the letter mentions that the writer and others considered suicide, with some going through with it. As Hyunmoo wonders who wrote the letter, Renian finds a hearthstone under the bones. He compares it to the one he owns and notices they look different. The moment Hyunmoo grabbed the stone, it starts glowing intensely and leaves an unusual imprint on his hand. A pop-up alerts him he is being watched by the stars. Renian flaps away sensing trouble, and Hyunmoo is cast into yet another universe. Hyunmoo floats in a space that seems infinitely stretched and calls out to Renian. Right then it is disclosed the leading star, Barul, has recognized the shards of star absorbed by him. But he disappoints Barul, who leaves him, giving up the shards, which infuriates him, and Bro shows him the finger. He demands from the system to know more about the stars, as he has been oblivious to them. The system unlocks the information that each star belongs to supreme beings ruling their territories somewhere in the universe. They lend their mighty powers to their kin through star shards, so they can rise and expand when they come into power. The mechanism detects his curiosity, and reveals he carries a star shard, and they want him with them. Now the reason becomes clear to Hyunmoo. The stone Renian found looked different because it was a fragment, not a hearthstone. A symbol shines before Hyunmoo as stars of different colors spiral around him, each offering something unique. A dazzling charm, an army of steel, help to hunt the snake that destroyed the previous world, a world to rule from behind a screen, and the title of Lord of Death. A notification prompts Hyunmoo to choose a star to follow. Confused by the flood of information, he asks for clarification. The system responds with more details about each star. The shattering star, Gaul, is a mastermind who rules in the shadows, using secret societies, daggers, and poison to manipulate. The weeping star, Verde, the father of all sorrow, commands an army of the dead, thriving on despair and the ruins of shattered hopes. The starving star, Yogalim, is a greedy serpent whose people are always hungry, desiring to devour the world. Whispering star, Monstral, an instigator shining brightly in the light and a dazzler in dark, deceive any powerful being to kneel before her. Conquering star, Ardon is a loser desiring to rule a world in ashes by burning it in hatred and resentment while advancing with fire, slaughtering enemies with iron. Hyunmoo finds their personalities repulsive, and the system points out that the stars are only interested in beings like their own selves. Offended, he lashes out, unable to see what fault of his led to such a degrading comparison. He resolves it within himself that he's better than them. He questions if choosing a star would change anything. A stream of visuals rush past his eyes like a fast-paced film reel demonstrating the power of these stars. A prompt appears once again, urging him to make his choice. Recalling the struggles he endured in hell, he asks if siding with a star has a cost. The system replies that he only needs to follow and serve the star, as they nurture their kin to act on their will. Unsure about this whole ordeal, Hyunmoo asks if he has to choose right now. The answer comes after a moment's silence, calling it a rare opportunity. The more they test him through trials, the faster will he grow. Hyunmoo questions whether there's an immediate reward or not. The stars respond at once, clearly insulted. Seeing that they approached him first, he questions their motives and demands more time to think. In response, the conquering star, Ardon, loses interest and turns away, while the others grant him the time he asks for. The galaxy fades and Hyunmoo returns to hell. The whispering star, Monstrel, circles around him, its sharp edge pricking his hand. He's notified that the star activated part of his power, granting him the legendary skill, Domination. He sees it as a bribe and wonders why such powerful beings couldn't stop the difficulty from escalating in hell. Hyunmoo speculates that there must have been more talented people than him, and if even they couldn't prevent this, perhaps the stars are the creators of hell. He decides to proceed with caution and observe the stars more closely. After 3 days in hell, Hyunmoo returns to the real world, stronger, but never sure where he'll land. More often than not, he arrives disheveled and ragged, forced to sneak through the shadows to avoid attention. One day, still in that worn state, Hyunmoo visits Yumin and declares he wants to buy a house. She sees his conviction, but reminds him it's impossible. He's sitting on illicit cash. A lavish estate in the hands of a zero-star commoner like him would raise suspicion. The next day, he weighs his options to tap into his wealth more freely by registering an ability user and raise his rank. His mind drifts to the star that followed him here, wondering why settle for just one when he could take them all. His greed sets him to acquire as much power as possible by any means necessary. The world's fate and humanity's survival means nothing to him. He just wants the world in his grip. Hyunmoo and Yumin eat quietly across the table, eyes on the TV as the news covers Lee Ji-tae's announcement. The Taesung clan will attempt to clear Baekdu Dungeon for the first time since the North Korea was abandoned, after they had a crisis where all the monsters escaped the 5-star Baekdu Dungeon. Such a crisis is known as flood phenomenon, where if a dungeon is left alone, monsters will pour out of it. Baekdu Dungeon, a 5-star dungeon with equally strong monsters. Only mana-infused weapons can kill them. Most clans avoid it, but Lee Ji-tae's team is the first to try a raid. While changing channels, Hyunmoo stops at a news report. The biggest talent test of the year opens registration in 3 days, which is said to be the biggest one this year. The Taesung clan will use it to recruit for next year's Baekdu Dungeon raid, to restore peace and safety in Korea. The next day, in the crowded line for test registration, someone behind Hyunmoo yells at him to move. He turns and glares. Startled, the man asks if it's his first ever evaluation, which makes him recall his first time as a kid at the orphanage. He looks around. The lines are chaotic, overcrowded with both new applicants and ranked hunters. Taesung's open recruitment has drawn everyone. He asks the man if he's registering too. The man shakes his head. He's just here to update his rank, hoping to raise his value. Hyunmoo thinks in this world, a person's worth is measured by their level, driving a relentless obsession with ranking up. Lost in thought, Hyunmoo doesn't notice the line moving until the man behind him gives him a push. Still, his mind lingers on the possibilities a higher rank could bring. When Hyunmoo's turn finally comes, he's told there will be 3 checks. The first is an identity check, just a formality. The second is a stats check, completed after a blood test. The third is a skills check, which evaluates combat ability. Most people score a base skill rating of 100, but it doesn't mean much. High stats don't always make a good hunter. For the final test, Hyunmoo is told to insert his arm into the machine and grip the marble at the end as tightly as possible. The instant his fingers close around it, a loud crack rings out, leaving everyone wide-eyed in stunned silence. Right after the crack, the numbers on the machine start going haywire. The workers are flabbergasted, and 2 possible reasons come to mind. Either his rank is too high, or the machine is too old. Since it worked fine for Lee Ji-tae earlier, the second seems more likely. Hyunmoo feels embarrassed for breaking it, but the staff calmly call it a common malfunction and recalibrate it. He tries again, holding back his strength, but the machine breaks once more. This time, they blame it on a system error and ask him to try again. But he asks them to let it, and he's handed a paper. His skill review is now pending. Afterwards, the crowd is then split into 3 lines: attackers, defenders, and those with buff or unclear abilities. With his results pending, Hyunmoo joins the 3rd group for further evaluation. The receptionist asks if he wants to take the hunter ability test, noting he passed the base test. She says, "This year's test will be unlike previous ones, as it is in partnership with the Taesung clan." She warns that while becoming a hunter sounds exciting, most don't earn much, and it's a dangerous path that could even potentially result in death. Only the top hunters make a good income, while the others may need to consider alternative paths. But Hyunmoo isn't here for money, fame, or fortune. He feels a strong sense of duty toward humanity. Unknowingly, dungeons could soon become too difficult for humans to handle. She hands him a registration kit and hints that the test will involve a dungeon. Hyunmoo wonders what kind it'll be. Meanwhile, Lee Jae arrives at the research bureau. Crowds gather as he walks in, flanked by men in suits. His team briefs him. The Red Butterfly group has joined the test, a group many clans want to recruit, but which has declined the offers, aiming to use their skills for the northern expedition. The moment the Taesung clan mentioned the north, they applied for the test. Jitae says he would have accepted them without testing. As for the other participants, most are under level 20, no match for Red Butterfly. Then his staff mention our guy, a unique case, awakened with highly and unusually toxic blood. Jitae finds it impressive but risky. Just a drop of Hyunmoo's blood could endanger teammates. They decide to watch him for now. Hyunmoo waits in the hall outside the test room with other participants for the hunter's test. A man emerges, calls his name, and hands him a small square tile before walking away. Hyunmoo calls after him to ask about it, but the man doesn't even glance back. Soon the test room opens. Everyone is led into the third gym of Yongsan Talent Bureau, transformed into a dungeon simulation. Lee Jae addresses them. The test dungeon is based on a 2-star Ukrainian dungeon model. Their task is simple: gather as many tiles as possible in 3 hours to pass the dungeon-themed test. The hunter candidates enter, and the test begins, leaving them to experience the dungeon for the next 3 hours. Inside the dungeon-themed gym, monsters aren't the only targets. Every participant starts with 1 tile. Monsters carry between 1 and 3. The person with the most tiles by the end will be rewarded. A group of contestants forms a team, balancing defense and healing skills, and invites Hyunmoo to join. But he sees himself as a one-man army, hence refuses. He wants to be the only one rewarded, knowing only the person with the most tiles will win. The team, concerned about being short 1 member while other teams have 5, try to convince him. Hyunmoo shrugs them off, but one member, furious, grabs his jacket and demands his tile, thinking he's just another weak contestant. Our guy responds with a brutal punch, causing the guy to collapse as his tile flies loose. Hyunmoo snatches it mid-air, then turns to the rest of the team, daring them to try the same. Instead, the one who had initially invited him surrendered, dropping his tile and backing off, which amused Hyunmoo. The guy explained that no rule stated you'd be disqualified for losing a tile. Plus, the dude our main character broke was their tank. Our champ thinks the man is smart to surrender, so resolves to let them go if they hand over their tiles. Meanwhile, in the observation room above the dungeon, Lee Jae watches through a glass panel that shows the entire map of dungeon. Beside him stands his associate, monitoring the test. The leader of Red Butterfly Group stands out. She's already taken all the tiles of the people she went in with. Jitae notes that if her 2-star teammates regroup, they could likely handle a 3-star dungeon with ease. Surviving is key, but Taeshong is also looking for people strong enough to fight the monsters of this dungeon. One of those is the Mushroom Droid, newly developed by the Do industry. It's an android built from the mushroom monster's skin from Chernobyl Dungeon, durable, equipped with mana-repelling combat gloves, and cheap to repair thanks to regeneration due to the materials used. But it has flaws. Its attack power is weak, especially against multiple people. While groups can beat it, solo hunters like Red Butterfly herself will struggle to learn its patterns. Moreover, its tile is embedded deep inside, making it hard to retrieve. Jitae suddenly notices something odd on the map. A red dot marked with Hyunmoo's initials shows he already holds 8 tiles. Back in the dungeon, Hyunmoo finally faces the android, but his expectations shatter the moment he sees it. He was expecting real monsters, but the creature in front moves like a mannequin, eerily similar to the scarecrows for beginners he fought in Hell. Taking advantage of its slow speed and weak stats, Hyunmoo pummels it with his fists, keeping it pinned. He grabs its leg, spins, and slams it into the ground. Standing amid the pile of wrecked androids, he lets out a scream, bored out of his mind. He uses his dismantling skill to extract the tile from the remains. It felt too easy. Just as he thinks that, a broadcast echoes through the dungeon. Only 34 minutes have passed, and just 30% of the tiles have changed hands. Then comes the ranking. 3rd place, Hongryun, a muscular woman with 7 tiles. 2nd, Red Butterfly with 9 tiles. 1st, Hyunmoo, holding 16 tiles. After the announcement, Hyunmoo tosses a droid's head in his hands, thinking goblins would have been a better challenge than these scarecrow-like androids. He checks his loot, a common-rated Spore Eroder's flesh. He figures the scarecrows in Hell were tough because of leather like this. Curious to craft something, he places the leather on his arm. It wraps around naturally. Using his crafting skill, he creates Spore Eroder's knee and arm guards, also common grade. Encouraged, he gets ready to craft more. Meanwhile, Red Butterfly, sitting in second place, eyes the leaderboard with determination to surpass our hero. A swarm of opponents spots her and charges. She takes position and activates her skill, radiating blinding light. She dashes through the crowd, throwing punches, landing kicks, flipping midair, until she stands on shattered ground, surrounded by the defeated. The spectacle draws an even larger group aiming to take her hour. Surrounded, she calmly strikes a karate pose, daring them to step forward. Her teammate Hongrion rushes in, shouting her nickname, Uni, trying to stop her. Red Butterfly insists she needs more tiles, but her teammate reminds her they already have enough for the Northern Expedition. 88 tiles, confirmed by Red Snake, the nerdy guy who surrendered to Hyunmoo earlier. Still unsatisfied, Red Butterfly glances at Hongrion one last time and dashes off with a thunderous burst, leaving her team worried. In the observation room, Lee Ji-tae notes Hyunmoo's performance and asks for more information on him. His guy reports that this is the guy's first evaluation, but his skill review is still pending. Ji-tae connects the dots. He's the one with the poisonous blood whose report he saw earlier. Hyunmoo's movements show he knows his way around dungeons, projecting him as a sneaky explorer who gets in dungeons without permission. The suited man confirms Hyunmoo has no criminal record or cancelled licenses. Lee Ji-tae suspects he might be a foreigner, as some places have weaker rules. Curious, Ji-tae eagerly awaits Hyunmoo's clash with Red Butterfly. In the dungeon, starving and unaware of his surroundings, Hyunmoo bites into the flesh of Spore Eroder, which came from the mushroom droid, only to gag and vomit from the foul taste. Suddenly he senses something approaching. A woman with a long red ponytail, surrounded by fluttering red butterflies, appears. Red Butterfly brushes past him and stops abruptly in front of him, almost tumbling him over. She asks if he's alone, to which he humorously replies that 150 sidekicks are waiting for his command. Reading the truth, she smirks and drops into a fighting stance. Hyunmoo's system rings with alerts. She's level 14, double his level 7. She throws a punch, and he instinctively crosses arms to block. Her strength overwhelms him. A red arc cuts through the air as she kicks toward his face. He dodges, but barely. One solid hit could end him, and if not for his battle helper skill, he'd be out cold by now. His skill activates during battle, letting Hyunmoo dodge her attacks. She throws another kick and he ducks, still unable to strike. Afraid of losing, he activates his Valiant Energy buff, a move he's been saving that could be risky for humans. His hand starts glowing with blue energy as he raises his fist. As their fists collide, red and blue energies erupt like rival spells. Their eyes meet, and with a sickening crack, her arm breaks. She stifles a scream as Hyunmoo demands her metal tiles. She drops them on the ground, asking if what broke her arm was a skill. Before he can answer, a huge woman rushes in, screaming her teammate's nickname and punches Hyunmoo, sending him flying. Dazed on the ground, he spots two figures, Red Snake, the man from earlier, and the muscular woman helping Red Butterfly up. Red Snake introduces the bulky woman as Hongrion. Her expression shifts to fury when she sees Red Butterfly's broken arm, who tries to calm her, saying her team is too weak to defeat him. Hyunmoo proudly admits he's the one who did it. Just then, the broadcast announces, the test has ended after 3 hours, and rankings will be revealed soon. Hyunmoo worries that the distraction cost him first place. Third place goes to someone named Hyuntaik with 21 tiles. Second is Kang Hyunmoo with 69 tiles. First is Red Butterfly with 88 tiles. Both Hyunmoo and Red Butterfly are confused by the announcement, while Hongrion smiles triumphantly. Poor guy realizes Hongrion must have taken his tiles when she punched him and given them to her sister. Frustrated, he facepalms, but Red Butterfly tries to explain it's a misunderstanding. Hongrion cuts her off, demanding an apology for her sister's broken arm. Even though her words anger him, he stays calm and thinks carefully before acting. First, he gets why she's shocked about the broken arm. Second, she should have heard the whole story before blaming him, even if the fight was fair. Third, what really bugs him is that after taking his first place, they're still making him the bad guy. Deciding to teach them a lesson, he uses his legendary skill, Domination, given by the Whispering Star. The mood darkens as eerie monsters appear behind him. Hongrion turns pale, collapses in fear, and sees her leader with a red ponytail in a monstrous form. A small girl named Haru rushes in and heals Hongrion, followed by medics. Realizing he went too far, Hyunmoo flees. Lee Ji-tae watches Hyunmoo's precise moves, impressed by a level 7 taking down someone twice his level, thinking he could even surpass their hunters. He decides to meet our champ before Red Butterfly. Outside the test area, Hyunmoo reflects on wasting too much mana using domination. Lee Ji-tae's man Tai Min-soo approaches, hands him a card, congratulating him on passing the test. He assures him that Taesung Clan can help him reach his full potential. Hyunmoo asks if that includes even reaching the stars. In the car, Lee Ji-tae replays the dungeon battle between Hyunmoo and Red Butterfly. Tae Min-soo reports to Lee Ji-tae that Hyunmoo refused the offer, as expected. He asks if Ji-tae knows anything about the stars Hyunmoo mentioned, but Ji-tae seems to be just as puzzled. On the other hand, Red Butterfly's group accepted the offer, aligning with their goal of the Northern Expedition. After a brief exchange, both part their ways. Jite remains intent on monitoring Hyunmoo, whose true motives still elude him. Meanwhile, after the test, as Yumin drives Hyunmoo home, he shows her the card Tai Min-soo gave him, though she is more curious about the box in his lap. Red Butterfly's prize, given to him as an apology for Hongryon's outburst. Inside are rare heavy grip gloves that boost defense and strength. Yumin mentions that the recent batch of crystal moss was sold to Park Hwiso once again, who's been hoarding it, from whoever they sell it to. Hyunmoo grows suspicious, thinking no one would need so much ruby unless they're working for someone. He considers cutting out the middleman and dealing directly with Park Hwiso's employer. She then asks if the box only had the gloves. Remembering the prize money, Hyunmoo flips the box and a 50 million won check falls out. Later, parked in front of their apartment, they chat about the generous reward and the hunter lifestyle. Suddenly, Hyunmoo smells blood and stops Yumin from entering the building, telling her to stay in the car. He sneaks to the back of the house and finds two men unconscious and a shadowed figure standing silently, Park Hwiso. He explains the situation. His crystal moss has caught international attention, even from high-ranking hunters. The men on the ground were members of Japanese Yakuza after his supply. Hwiso says if he hadn't acted, Yumin could have been hurt. He proposes a partnership with the Taesung clan, the very group Hyunmoo just turned down. Though suspicious the clan may be behind all this, he listens as Hwiso admits to investigating him, only to find nothing, almost like everything about him has been erased. His techniques in the test and rare moss he brings in don't fit a sewage cleaner. When Hyunmoo refuses again, Hwiso's expression hardens as he decides to get rough. Our hero's Hell's Strongest title enables increasing the effect of his abilities. Suddenly, Hwiso attacks with his wand, but Hyunmoo dodges and distracts the man long enough to snatch the rare gloves from his pocket. Using self-defense as an excuse, he slips them on and punches the man in the face, surprising the man who notices the first-place reward from the test in his possession. Park Hwiso drops his disguise, tossing his coat aside with a murderous glare in his eyes. Things take a sharp turn as Hyunmoo, too full of pride, ignores every word the man says. Hwiso calmly pulls off the cover of the cane he carries, revealing a sleek, razor-thin sword underneath. Hyunmoo's battle helper skill activates just as Hwiso swings the sword at him. He dodges, but the man charges again. This back and forth continues until Hyunmoo leaps like a frog, landing behind him. Our guy doesn't see it coming, but when the old man makes a move, the sword narrowly misses his face. Hyunmoo seizes the opportunity, grabbing Hwiso by the collar and activating his domination skill. Thinking his spell worked, Hyunmoo moves to throw him, but his movement halts when he hears the man speak. It's too late. He's slashed across the wrist and drops to his knees. The old man admits to not slitting his throat since he had no intention of killing our guy and instead questions who he works for. Our strange lad starts laughing hysterically, reminding Hwiso of being forgetful of his poison blood. Seeing his guard drop, Hyunmoo takes advantage, slamming his blood-smeared palm into Hwiso's mouth. Despite the old man's experience, it's clear he lacks poison resistance. Still, he retaliates with a sharp elbow strike and a kick to the gut, sending our main character crashing into a wall. Hwiso quickly pulls out a bottle of medicine and sprays it on his face, while Hyunmoo, aided by his regeneration skill, heals his wrist. The old man is taken aback by his healing capabilities and asks if he is hiding a skill. Hyunmoo's health had dropped below 10%, and thus activated his last survivor title, allowing him to regenerate. The man realizes that violence alone won't defeat Hyunmoo. Frustrated, Hwiso shifts his approach, bringing up the offer again, asking Hyunmoo about the source of the crystal moss. When Hyunmoo refuses to answer, the man tries to coax him into joining the Taesung clan, but our guy tells Hwiso to work for him instead, since he never plans to work under anyone. Park Hwiso, uninterested in Hyunmoo's offer or words, turns to leave. However, our bro is now impressed by the man's skills, decides he can't let him go. Hyunmoo tries to stop him, questioning why Park Hwiso is so invested in a clan with no real strength. He points out that the clan is smaller than the third-ranked Almighty Lotus clan, with members weaker than the second-ranked Great Unknown. He insults the clan and its leader by calling them media stars, which stops Hwiso in his tracks. He responds, calling Hyunmoo either ignorant of reality or blinded by ambition, thinking he could surpass Lee Ji-tae. Hyunmoo mocks Hwiso about losing to him, but before he can react, the man quickly draws his blade and swings at him, grazing his cheek and cutting some hair. Then he highlights the power of the clan members, with Lee Ji-tae at the top as the strongest. Hwiso warned that if his intention had been to kill a level 10 rookie, our main guy wouldn't still be standing. With pride, Hyunmoo declares his intention to outshine Lee Ji-tae. He then asks what makes Lee Ji-tae so special. The man reveals that Lee Ji-tae reached level 20 in under 6 months, that too with the support of the clan. Something the man thinks that Hyunmoo can only dream of achieving in years, and this is just the bare minimum he can do. Stung by the insult, Hyunmoo vows to surpass Lee Ji-tae in 2 weeks, offering Park Hwiso a deal. If he succeeds, the old man must work for him. However, the man dismisses it as a joke and walks off. Determined, Hyunmoo returns to Hell using goblins as punching bags to level up. He forces his fist into one's mouth, its sharp teeth piercing his flesh as his toxic blood is forced down its throat. His system announces he's reached level 15, followed by another notification. The conquering star Ardon has set his eyes on him. Trying to raise his middle finger in defiance, Hyunmoo realizes he can't. His hand is torn apart by the goblin's teeth. As he wraps his hand in bandages thinking he shouldn't be pushing his body too hard, Renian suddenly appears, noticing the wound. She flies over and pokes it with her straw, drinking his blood. Hyunmoo lets it happen since he can come back to life if he dies from blood loss, which makes him wonder if he could also be revived in the real world like in hell. Looking at the pile of goblins, Hyunmoo feels impressed by his own progress, though he still can't find the black-handed goblin he met at the very start. At that moment he hears footsteps approaching. It's the same goblin he was just talking about. He jumps to his feet and Renian disappears as suddenly as she appeared, leaving Hyunmoo alone with a goblin trembling with fury at the sight of its dead people. Our guy in action crafts a claw out of hell darts using the bandage on his hand while teasing the goblin with words. The goblin charges at Hyunmoo, sticking its tongue out. The goblin strikes and Hyunmoo is unable to last even a second before dying, having survived for 12 days. He wakes up on the ground, a panel notifying him of a new quest with the objective to defeat the black-handed goblin. Getting back on his feet, he plans a trap with thumbtacks coated with his toxic blood in a deep ditch to catch the goblin. He notices it too late that the goblin is approaching and dies once again from a fatal blow after surviving exactly 1 minute. On his 6th attempt, Hyunmoo tries to escape, but the goblin chases him without any breaks. Exhausted from running, he spins and tries to counterattack with a punch, hoping to catch it off guard. To his surprise, the goblin retaliates with a brutal strike from its blade. He briefly considers hiding after resurrection to level up in safety, but his ego refuses to take the easy way out. He's determined to defeat the goblin, unwilling to back down without putting up a fight as the goblin kills him once again. Days pass, and the level 20 redcap goblin sees no sight of him but can't relax knowing our guy can't just die. Turns out the goblin has a name, Curson. Not only that, but it also has people to protect. Suddenly, a frantic goblin rushes up to him, shouting that someone poisoned their drinking water, and now they're all dying. Curson rushes to the hideout, where goblins lie scattered and sick. The smaller goblin informs him that the poison also killed the animals they were raising. Curson's expression darkens with anger as he realizes the human is behind this cruelty. He regrets not locking up the man earlier, feeling that this could have been avoided if he had. Soon another goblin arrives carrying Curson's crying baby. Overcome with emotion, Curson begins to walk away, determined to find the human responsible. His people try to stop him, insisting it's pointless to fight someone who can keep reviving. They urge him to let go of his vengeful quest and run away together in search of a new place. Suddenly, the goblin starts hearing whispers from the stars and instructs his people to leave and find a new shelter. However, their gazes fall upon a scout surrounded by poison blood. The horde quickly realizes that the human has been leaving traces to lead them into a trap and attack when they least expect it. The leader tells his people to hide while he tracks down the human. He reassures them that he can kill Hyunmoo even blindfolded, as his movements are burned into his memory. Still, his people caution him to be careful, reminding him that unlike the human, he can't revive. With his people gone, Curson is left alone, and he senses the human's presence nearby. He vows to deliver a painful death. Hyunmoo, now armed with his heavy grip gloves, prepares for what is coming next. Our hero offers Curson a chance to die at his hands, which confuses the goblin, thinking it's a distraction. Hyunmoo clarifies that if he truly wanted to poison the goblins, they would already be dead, not sick. He warns the goblin that although only a few his people died this time, he's capable of striking again, and challenges the creature to stop him if he can. The enemy sways his sword at our guy, which he grips as the goblin says he could just capture and dismember Hyunmoo, but it's pointless since this human can simply kill himself and revive. Hyunmoo offers a deal. His life in exchange for his family's safety, saying he only wants to extract revenge by killing Curson. Curson drops his sword, asking if all the man wants is his life. If so, he must keep his promise and leave after killing him. Hyunmoo tries to pick up the sword to kill the goblin, but that second of distraction is enough. The monster knocks him back with a hard kick. He doesn't buy a word Hyunmoo says. He loathes him. Curson jumps atop him and attempts to strike him by his sword, but Hyunmoo defends it with the help of his gloves. The goblin hits him with his sword one more time, vowing to deliver him a painful death. Hyunmoo's health drops below 10%, but his regeneration skill kicks in, healing him almost instantly. The goblin's mistake was not killing him right away. The champ retaliates, punching Curson in the gut, sending him stumbling to his knees. Grabbing the goblin by the neck, he delivers another hit, sending Curson flying, and he collides with a wall. Our guy isn't even using his full strength, giving the opponent a chance to recover. As Curson struggles to rise, another punch slams into his gut. The poor goblin is certain he dealt serious damage, yet Hyunmoo seems untouched. Hyunmoo treats the goblin as a punchbag who thinks the human might be hiding a skill considering his strength. Sensing Curson's confusion, Hyunmoo reveals he never got stronger. He just fooled him into thinking he was easy to kill by a single blow. Since Kurson thought he could kill him whenever he wanted, he became careless, failing to notice Hyunmu's Last Survivor in Hell regeneration perk. Even after this revelation, the goblin refuses to give up easily. He prepares to fight again, but Hyunmu lands a hard blow to his neck, sending him crashing to the ground face first. Kurson, struggling to speak, tries to say something, so Hyunmu decides to let him speak. The miserable creature begins pleading for his life, begging Hyunmu to spare him. He reveals that his propel being unblessed are not allowed to live here. They too will perish if he dies. Smirking at the thought of gaining all their experience, Hyunmu pulls out a hell dart and stabs him without hesitation. After the battle, Hyunmu scans the city for any goblin traces but finds none. Moments later, he's rewarded for completing the quest, Enemies on a Wooden Bridge, by defeating the level 21 Red Cap Goblin. He receives a silver reward box, which is upgraded to gold due to the difficulty gap. After gaining 3 levels, Hyunmu's hearthstone activates, surprising him as he wonders if revenge grants him more experience. A notification appears, 21 days until the next quest. Another follows, stating he's being watched by the shattering star, Gaul. He focuses back on the dead goblin and begins inspecting it to find out what made Kurson so strong. Renian suddenly appears hoping to eat the goblin, so he tells her that she can eat the goblin once he's done with his analysis. Holding Kurson's sword, Hyunmu examines it and realizes Goblin's strength wasn't just from the weapon. His power must stem from something else. His eyes are drawn to Kurson's black hand, still clutching the sword. The dark, strange markings etched onto the hand catch his attention. A notification informs Hyunmu that his hand is being guided by Gaul, the star that had been watching him earlier. As Hyunmu touches the goblin's palm, the writings on the goblin's hand surge up like smoke, piercing his own hand like needles. A pattern forms on his palm, and the system notifies him that he's absorbed a fragment of the shattering star, Gaul, unlocking the legendary skill, Family. The scene shifts to Yumin, who is asleep in her bed and stirs as she hears her name and blinks awake, surprised to see Hyunmu after 2 days. Frustrated, she turns to leave, but Hyunmu grabs her hand to stop her. Hyunmu considers telling the truth behind his disappearance, but before he can speak, Yumin brings up Park Hwisu's unexpected visit, who came at her doorstep inquiring about him, which raised her suspicions. She feels left in the dark and angrily demands to know where Hyunmu disappears to for days, insisting he take responsibility for dragging her into his mess. He shakes her gently to calm her down, promising to explain everything. His mind races. He wonders why he's kept her in the dark. She's been by his side, always helping and putting him first. Realizing how deeply she's involved, fear grips him. If anything happened to her, he knows he'd lose his mind if left alone in this miserable world. Moved by his emotions, Hyunmu spills all of his secrets, the hearthstone, the mysterious place known as Hell, and his frequent disappearances. Yumin listens with worry in her eyes, but Hyunmu reassures her, promising that no matter how long he's gone in Hell, he will always come back to her. Her heart softens as he calls her his lighthouse, his reason for coming back. She leans on his chest and says she doesn't like being just the lighthouse, instead wants to save him when he is in trouble. Hyunmu says he needs to take a shower, but she lays her head on his leg and suggests taking a shower together. Next day, Hyunmu wonders how to contact Park Hwisu after the promised day had passed. Luckily, the opportunity presents itself. Hwisu shows up and offers him a ride. Apologizing for breaking the promise, he insists he's reached level 20. However, Hwisu doubts it. He was rank 7 just 2 weeks ago, and there's no way to verify his claim. Besides, the old man never verbally agreed to the deal, so it wasn't official anyways. For his hard work, the old man offers a 15% increase on the crystal moss price and assures him that he won't force him into joining the clan. But Hyunmu isn't satisfied. He demands the price be doubled as compensation. The old man glares at him in disappointment, but Hyunmu smirks, unfazed by his intimidation. Summoning a piece of rare crystal moss in his hands, he looks at Park Hwisu and asks if he knows what a monopoly is. Hyunmu tells Park Hwisu that only he can bring these exclusive crystals, giving him a monopoly over their trade. He threatens to change his mind if Park refuses to work by his terms. The man insists he's already paying a premium, 5-star dungeon rates plus a 15% bonus. Hyunmu plays his final card by flicking something at Park, who catches it. He opens his hand to reveal a legendary ring, Trust of Urhast, which temporarily doubles the senses of the wearer. Hyunmu teases him, boasting that Lee Jitae has never given him such gifts, implying that he would prove to be more useful than his boss. He lets Park keep the ring until he admits our hero is better than Lee Jitae. Park Hwiso examines it and deduces the gloves given as reward by Lee Jitae is nothing compared to this ring. The shape of it seems like it's the part of a pear. When he asks about the other ring, Hyunmu lies, claiming he's never seen it. Pleased, the old man agrees to double the price and offers to handle the tax issue discreetly. This is what our guy admires. The old man goes to extra mile to satisfy his clients. Still, Hyunmu slyly keeps the truth. The second ring is in his pocket. Obedience of Ukelheart lets him track and weaken the one holding the other ring by 50%. When asked if he wants anything else, Hyunmu motions towards the car and asks its name. Later, he calls Yumin outside her institute. Annoyed by the disturbance at first, she's stunned to see him with a sleek black car. He says he borrowed it from Park Hwiso and plans to start driving lessons. When Yumin finds out Hyunmoo drove there himself, she scolds him like a toddler since he doesn't have a license. What was meant to be a sweet date ends with her angrily taking the wheel and driving him around instead. Afterward, Hyunmoo practices with Hwiso, who suggests that joining the clan could solve all his problems, offering luxury, convenience, and everything else a hunter could ever wish for. The old man hits Hyunmoo's arm harshly, mentioning that Taesung clan has the best benefits in the world, and it would be his loss to ignore the offer. Frustrated, he refuses to join again and tries to land a punch, but the man dodges and strikes him in the gut, possibly cracking a few ribs. The damage is not enough to trigger his regeneration, which Hwiso is keenly interested to witness. Feeling smug, Hyunmoo thinks his endurance without using skills may have impressed him, but Park Hwiso simply says he needs more time to assess him, then launches into another round of training. Park continues to train Hyunmoo, and mentions the Great Unknown Clan, which Hyunmoo refuses to join due to its shady reputation and mysterious leader. The man then asks about the third-ranked National Association of Ability Users, NAA. Hyunmoo says he's considering that option since they're known for their kindness, even to outsiders, though it can be a bit excessive for some. Thinking he had him distracted, Bro takes action, but Hwiso swiftly dodges, tucking Hyunmoo's arm underneath his, and breaks it, dropping his health critically. Our guy's regenerative perk kicks in, and the old man gets exactly what he wanted as his hand heals by moving itself back into place. Hwiso is impressed by Hyunmoo's growth over just 2 weeks and excited to see his potential. After training, the man asks the reason for being called here. Hyunmoo says it was just to return the borrowed car. He then asks if Hwiso has ever heard of stars, which the man mistakes for the awakened class system. It is then revealed that our hero is a level 20 of the first class. He tries to clarify by listing star names he knows. Park Hwiso admits he's only heard of them from top hunters like Lee Jitae. He adds that China's top hunter, Xiao Oji, once mentioned a group called the 5-Star Association that created a dungeon. Also, the Reverse Cross Crusade, a group for half-ability users, uses the Star of Bethlehem as their symbol. Hyunmoo is left puzzled and asks the man to gather more information. Unexpectedly, Park Hwiso asks if Hyunmoo wants to clear out a dungeon. Puzzled by this, he questions him why he is asking this so suddenly. Park Hwiso advises Hyunmoo to build connections if he won't join a clan but still wants to rank up. The best way is to gain recognition by socializing and clearing dungeons to rise to Lee Jitae's level. Since the dungeon he's been training in isn't recorded, no one sees him as a seasoned hunter. This upcoming raid is his chance to get noticed and learn the basics. Hwiso tells him to wait for a call once preparations are done. Hyunmoo arrives at Cheonggae Mountain, a permanent 1-star dungeon, where new hunters can test their abilities and ordinary people hike or vacation. An overseer from the Great Unknown gathers the hunters and lines them up. Introducing herself as No Howl, she welcomes everyone. Her breath reeks of alcohol the moment she speaks, prompting her to explain that overseers are assigned to prevent rookie conflicts. Each team has a mid-ranked overseer from every different clan for this purpose. Na Howl starts briefing the rookies on basic dungeon knowledge, beginning with the well-known fact that dungeon difficulty increases with star ratings. She explains that there are 2 types of dungeons: mobile dungeons, which are more challenging due to their constantly shifting structures, and permanent dungeons, which have fixed layouts and are generally easier to clear. Since the rookies have never entered a dungeon, so they don't know what to expect from a dungeon, therefore they're assigned an overseer. The drunken woman suddenly vomits and sheepishly apologizes, saying she was out late the night before and asks everyone to introduce themselves. The 5-member team introduces themselves: Park Seo-moon, 2-star, Han Na-gyung, Kim Seo-young, Kim Soo-won, and Kang Hyunmoo, all 1-star. The woman tries to recall where she's seen Hyunmoo, listing a few institutions, but fails. Giving up, she inquires about his weapon, and he pulls out a wooden rod from his inventory. She asks if that's really the weapon he brought, and Hyunmoo explains it's no ordinary stick. It's a goblin's bat that makes monsters drop all their loot on contact. Park Seo-moon snaps, dumping out his weapons to prove that even a 2-star like him needs proper gear. Before he can continue, the overseer knocks him down and shoves his weapon inches from his face, scolding him for breaking the rules by showing it off in public and risking civilian panic. After he apologizes, she helps him up and leads the group toward the dungeon. Hyunmoo, quietly observing, concludes though she's not on Park Hwiso's level, but is still strong for a mid-ranker, and decides to test her abilities. Meanwhile, the goblin Hyunmoo killed in hell emerges from the ground behind him. The team enters and the dungeon gates close behind them with a heavy thud, and the team exchanges uneasy glances. Inside, the overseer warns that while it looks calm now, it will turn into a jungle once they go deeper and goblins begin to spawn. She asks if anyone knows how to clear it. Park Seo-moon answers that their first objective is to recover the return crystal. She confirms, adding that the crystal is located in the goblin cave where they spawn. Hyunmoo compares the return crystal to his hearthstone mentally. The overseer explains that rewards will increase with more completed objectives, but for now, they must focus on obtaining the return crystal. She tells them to begin exploring the dungeon while she observes from behind without intervening. Park Seo-moon takes the lead, warning the team to watch their head for sneak attacks and gather grass to mask their scent, claiming goblins are sensitive to smell. When Hyunmoo disagrees, Park Seo-moon points out that he got this advice from a famous streamer who cleared dungeons live, sparking an argument. The overseer steps in, requesting Hyunmoo's cooperation. The overseer asks why he's arguing, and Hyunmoo explains that goblins are sensitive to smell so can easily distinguish between fresh and old grass, thus masking their scent won't help. He also points out that goblins are short, so they should watch their ankles, not their heads. No Howl, the overseer, reveals that the streamer Park Seo-moon learned from used to clear 1-star dungeons 10 years ago, but now clears 3-star dungeons, and the things change with time. She's suspicious of Hyunmoo's in-depth knowledge, but he brushes it off, claiming it's his first dungeon experience, and he prepared by doing research. While they argue, a goblin sneaks up, but Hyunmoo kicks it away. He taunts his teammate for mocking his weapon, which he hasn't even used yet. The argument is dropped as the team focuses on the dungeon. The 3 1-star hunters fight together. Han Na-gyung slices a goblin with her whip, Kim Seo-young stabs another with her dagger, and Kim Soo-won slashes a goblin with his sword. Park Seo-moon, however, takes out multiple goblins alone in an instant. Impressed by their performance, the overseer grants them a short break. She notes that the goblins seem to be scared of something, and she plans to investigate after the team leaves. Suddenly, a scream cuts through the air, and the overseer rushes to the team. There, she finds a goblin tied to a tree, covered in black fluid, with its body horribly mutilated. She orders the team to find the return crystal quickly, as the situation is too dangerous for a 1-star dungeon. At that moment, they realize Hyunmoo is missing. They search everywhere but find no trace of him. Instead, their voices attract the attention of the far more dangerous being, the red-cap goblin. An hour earlier, bored of the amateur goblins, Hyunmoo had sneaked away. Once alone, he activates the family skill gained after defeating the red-capped goblin that lets him designate a target as family, bringing them back to life even outside of hell, as long as their body is not too deformed. With this power, Bro revives Kurson, who emerges from the ground. He tasks the goblin with eliminating all other goblins in the dungeon. Hesitant to kill his own kind, Kurson is warned by Hyunmoo that his tribe will be destroyed if he refuses. As Kurson angrily walks toward a goblin, Hyunmoo begins to feel strange. It's the connection from his family skill that allows him to sense Kurson's disgust and hatred towards his own kind, viewing such weak goblins as an abomination to his species. Driven by these emotions, Kurson vows to eliminate all goblins. Seeing him occupied with the goblins, Hyunmoo decides to check up on the team. Meanwhile, the team is on the verge of giving up after failing to find Hyunmoo. Just as they're about to lose hope, he suddenly appears from a bush. The overseer snaps at him for acting on his own, but the dude calmly explains he just needed to take a leak. Noticing their frustration, he asks what's wrong, and the woman explains they plan to leave once they secure the return stone. At that moment, Park Seo-moon spots the return stone and rushes towards it. Terrified and desperate to escape, the guy ignores the overseer's warnings, only for Kurson to appear and hook his leg. In a flash, Na-hul rushes in, drawing her twin blades as the others watch in shock. Amused, Hyunmoo observes the scene, wondering how a middle-class hunter from one of the 3 great clans, the Great Unknown, will fare against a goblin from hell. As Kurson clashes with Na-hul, Hyunmoo watches quietly from afar, observing her fight. Although the family skill grants him control over the goblin, there's a catch. If the target's level is higher than the user's, control is limited. Still, Bro isn't worried. Kurson must obey if he wants his tribe to live. Watching him tear through his own kind, Hyunmoo doesn't see hatred, just the pain of a puppet forced to betray his people. Hyunmoo feels relieved that the other hunters aren't intervening, allowing him to focus on the fight. He's curious if a mid-rank member of the Great Unknown clan can defeat a level 26 goblin. Kurson fakes an attack on the rookies as a distraction, drawing Na-hul away in a panic. But just as she closes in, he flips through the air and leaves a sharp cut across her cheek, landing behind her. Caught off guard by his precision and the quality of his gear, she wonders what something so powerful is doing inside a 1-star dungeon. Hesitating briefly but having no other option, she activates her skill Accelerate and vanishes momentarily. Hyunmoo signals Kurson to retreat, but in a blink, Na-hul reappears behind him. As the goblin turns, she carves an X across his chest. Her skill Accelerate boosts her movements to double their pace for a short time, but if maintained for a longer duration, it becomes risky to those around her. Thus, not wanting to waste a second, she leaps and drives her blade straight into his skull. Kurson moves so fast that no one sees it coming. Suddenly, smoke fills the area, catching Na-hul off guard. As it clears, the goblin is already on top of Seo-moon, sword pressed to his throat. The goblin speaks, warning her to stay back or he'll kill Seamoon. Na-Hul freezes. She's never seen a goblin talk before, let alone take a hostage. Na-Hul is caught between stopping a dangerous goblin that poses a long-term threat or saving Park Seamoon. In the end, she chooses to neutralize the greater threat while asking for Seamoon's forgiveness. Watching her abandon their teammate, Hyunmoo is disappointed. Without thinking, he hurls a stone at the goblin using his stick. Kurson reacts instantly, tossing his hostage aside and dodging the attack. The enhanced power from Hyunmoo's stick creates a massive hole in the tree which thrills him. Na-Hul scolds Hyunmoo for trying to draw attention to himself, instructing him to stay behind. Of course, the dude refuses, stepping forward in defiance. Hyunmoo's defiance only fuels Na-Hul's anger, but it leaves him more disappointed. He hadn't expected a mid-rank hunter from a well-known clan to be so weak against a level 21 goblin. It makes him question whether her other clanmates are equally unprepared. Had she faced Kurson in hell, Na-Hul wouldn't have lasted a second. The realization hits Hyunmoo. Kurson had intended to kill his hostage if she had decided to charge at him. If the creatures isn't fully under his control, someone could end up dead. To calm her down, our man explains that he's not criticizing, just trying to help, since if Seamoon had died, it would have caused her serious trouble. However, letting the goblin roam free would create even bigger issues, but still, he stresses, sacrificing the poor guy isn't the answer. Hyunmoo pushes for a solution, proposing that he fight to resolve the situation and get better results from the dungeon. He launches a pebble from his stick at the goblin again, this time hitting it squarely. Na-Hul dashes forward, determined to fix her earlier mistake by finishing off Kurson. Hyunmoo rushes in front of her, his stick clashing with Kurson's sword, but he overpowers, forcing the goblin back. He signals to warn him about Na-Hul closing in from behind. Her blades slice through Kurson's skin as he falls to the ground, his feet kicking her in the process. Hyunmoo spins Kurson with his stick, sending him crashing to the ground, mentally conveying him the message that this is better than getting stabbed in the back. Na-Hul strikes again, but Kurson dodges and hits back, their weapons clashing together. During the scuffle, Kurson steps on a bush, and just as Na-Hul's attacks him, and just as her blade is about to land, Seamoon leaps in between them, taking the hit by Kurson and knocking both of them to the ground. Bro signals the goblin to escape, and he throws another smoke bomb. The overseer rushes forward, but by the time she reaches him, the creature has vanished. Hyunmoo breathes a sigh of relief. Despite the chaos of his first dungeon expedition, it was managed well enough, leaving him excited for a high score. As the smoke clears, Na-Hul notices a blood trail left by Kurson and decides to follow it, asking Hyunmoo to escort everyone else out safely. However, she soon loses the trail and returns to headquarters for an investigation. There, she learns that the dungeon's rank hasn't changed, and no other teams have reported anything unusual. The man behind the desk refuses to believe her, saying that even the dungeon is still a permanent type. Sitting on a bench to collect her thoughts, Na-Hul is startled by Hyunmoo's sudden approach. He asks if she found the goblin, and she admits she did, but in an unrecognizable state. She theorizes that the other goblins may have seen the goblin's injuries as a chance to attack him. She took the red cap as evidence and plans to examine it further. She thanks him for his help, but he dismisses it, asking if his skills are enough for a 2-star dungeon. Na-Hul is surprised, pointing out that the goblin they fought seemed to be at least from a 3-star dungeon. She asks if he's had any prior dungeon experience, to which he denies. Then, she wonders if he was in a low-ranked dungeon due to restrictions, and he confirms it. Na-Hul thinks to herself that someone as skilled as him must have entered with an overseer, likely aiming to join a clan. Seeing potential in him, she offers him her card, explaining that joining a clan would grant him access to higher-ranked dungeons with support of clan members. Hyunmoo asks for time to think but shuts her down when she tries to pressure him. He insists he's fine on his own, citing their failure to handle the dungeon and his dislike of dividing loot. She tries to argue, but he walks off, hoping for a positive report from her. At the research center, Chief Du Wang-Yung is deep in her work when a knock at the door goes unanswered. Moments later, an employee bursts in, mentioning an odd rank evaluation submitted by Na-Hul. Annoyed that she's being disturbed over something so minor, she snaps, but he quickly assures her it's worth her time and hands over the report. Stunned, she asks if it's a system glitch, but the man assures her it's been double-checked. A 5- or 6-star case would have been amusing. This one leaves her at a complete loss of words. Another staffer rushes in with another strange report from the Gangnam Ability Center. Just like the last one, it's about Kang Hyunmoo. He was tested 3 times, and each result came back off the charts. A third employee rushes in, saying the Great Unknown offered $1 million for Hyunmoo's info before the official announcement of results. The chief scoffs, telling them to ignore it. An S-rank hunter with 7-8-star potential is worth far more. She orders everyone to keep the report under wraps and delay its release until they locate Hyunmoo. She needs answers. Meanwhile, Hyunmoo lies on the bathroom floor, preparing to run another test with Yumin's help. Ability users are ranked by a star-based system, separate from their levels. Each rank has a level cap they can't exceed. 50 levels for a 4-star, 40 for 3-star, and decreased by 10 levels for each star below. While regular people can awaken from 0 to 1 star due to mana exposure, no one who's already awakened has ever managed to raise their rank. After reaching his max level of 20, Hyunmoo began wondering if it was somehow possible to raise his rank. To find out, he turned to Yumin, a lab assistant and recent graduate researching mana and ability awakenings. Yumin extracts his blood to conduct detailed tests, as the Ability User Bureau only offers temporary tests due to budget limitations. They expected the blood to be toxic and explode the tubes, but nothing happens, leaving them puzzled, leaving them to think his poison must only activate under certain conditions. Afterwards, she hands him a document stating that long-term exposure to high-density mana could lead to a rank up. With no other options, Hyunmoo realizes he must explore this in hell. Seeing a glowing notification indicating 9 days until the next quest, he realizes the time only passes when he's in hell. Determined, he decides to spend as much time there as possible. In hell, Hyunmoo focuses on making the most of his time and successfully creates a legendary item, a short blade flowing with blood, by synthesizing materials. Just as he finishes, the starving star, Yoguleme, begins to watch him. Hyunmoo, in awe of the items, shows a crystal stone to Renian, who tell her it is gained by refining crystal moss, and known for creating legendary items when combined with rare materials. Renian and Kurson are having a conversation when our guy greedily asks for half of the goblin's rare gear in promising to reward him later, while being watched by the star. With the goblin's gear and the crystal stone, he creates another legendary item, the Arm of Ashut, a left-hand glove that offers low agility but medium defense, both physical and magical. The short blade flowing with blood he crafted earlier has medium penetration, low physical damage, and moderate magic damage. For 9 days, Hyunmoo trained with his new gear, getting used to the single glove and sharpening his skills. He built a solid shelter and endured the intense pain of his body melting in acid, which gave his blood an acidic property. With Kurson's help, he explored the areas in hell, all while the starving star Yogalim kept a watchful eye on him. Finally, his new quest, the Bottom of the Pyramid, activates, requiring him to survive for 24 hours while being chased by those intent on killing him. Every time he dies, the quest timer will reset. The star offers him a challenge, raising the quest's difficulty but promising double the rewards. Eager to grow stronger and level up, Hyunmoo thinks the challenge is the perfect opportunity and accepts it. As the quest begins, all the stars focus on him, and before Hyunmoo can process the situation, Yoguleme's family starts hunting him for the next 48 hours. At the same time, he suddenly receives a curse, Tasty. Hyunmoo, trying to understand the curse, notices Renian and Kurson drooling as their eyes are set on him. He warns them to stay away, but Renian explains that the curse makes him irresistible, like a spice at Yogalim's banquet hall. He asks if she knows anything about the curse, and she explains, anyone affected by it becomes addicted to the taste and smell, but they can never find the exact flavor again. Thankfully, Renian, being a fairy with a promised end, is immune to the curse. She further explains that Yogalimi's world is one of survival, where creatures either eat or get eaten. Behind him, Kurson stands, drooling. Hyunmoo spins around, irritated, and after punching him in the face tells him to wipe the saliva from his face. As he tries to think of a way to survive, Hyunmoo realizes that anything alive will attack him as soon as they sense him. Just as he's about to ask Renian something, the door bursts open. Mosquitoes flood the room, latching onto his exposed skin. While Hyunmoo smashes them, he's confused as mosquitoes shouldn't be active at this time. Renian tells him these mosquitoes are the lowest rank in Yogalim's family, youngest yet fastest monsters, which means that everything under Yogalim's control must be on their way to hunt him. Stepping outside, Hyunmoo is met with flocks of strange pigeons, all after him. The sight of them amuses him at first, that is, until they start chasing him, joined by the mosquitoes. He breaks into a sprint as Kurson runs alongside him, and Hyunmoo asks if there's space in his village for hiding. Kurson hesitates and declines, mentioning it is overcrowded due to the increase in birth rate. Frustrated that all his planning missed this, Hyunmoo groans as a notification reveals Yogalimi is still watching. He and Kurson leap off a cliff, while silently wishing for a fair fight. As they land and spot enemies below, he thinks his wish is granted. Smirking, he slips on his legendary glove, draws his blood-flowing blade, and charges towards the monsters. However, his joy vanishes as the monster rips him apart instantly, resetting his survival time just after 2 days. The poor guy keeps dying to the ghasts, the quest timer resetting each time, all under Yogulim's watchful gaze, which pisses of Hyunmoo. Left with no choice, he plays a deadly game of hide-and-seek for the 47 remaining hours he need to survive. At this point, he jokes they might as well cook or steam him to make it easier. He wonders where Kurson disappears to during all this, though if he were around, he'd probably just get in the way. As his mind scrambles for a plan, a voice suddenly speaks in his head, telling him to turn right at the next alleyway. He hesitates, unsure if it was just his thoughts, but then decides to follow the voice. Hyunmoo wonders if he's finally lost it after dying so many times. The voice, sensing his doubt, insists it's not what he thinks. With no better option, he follows its lead, half convinced he's being haunted, only for the voice to firmly deny being a ghost. Hyunmoo turns right, successfully escaping as the ghasts crash into the wall. His relief fades when a giant spider emerges from the ground, towering over him. The voice suddenly urges him to duck, just as the spider unleashes a web that traps the monsters chasing him. The massive creature, a widow spider at level 87, astonishes Hyunmoo. The voice reassures him that he is safe, at least until Yogoleme grows frustrated. However, Hyunmoo is more focused on figuring out who is speaking to him. The voice responds, explaining that it comes from a world where even stars are silenced, and nothing exists according to its own will. Only one star can whisper to him, and she appears before him, the whispering star, Monstriel. She explains that her actions will seem like coincidences to Yogoleme, so he won't discover the truth. Monstriel warns Hyunmoo not to speak out loud to her, urging him to pretend he's simply strategizing in his mind. If Yogoleme catches on, it could anger him, putting them both in danger. Hyunmoo asks if she's the only one who can hear his thoughts, and she explains she can only do so when he's thinking about talking to her. Relieved, he asks why she's helping. She explains that Yogoleme plans to increase his rank by feeding him to his family. Monstriel urges him to finish the test quickly before it's too late and join her family. Doubting her interest since he's barely stronger than goblins, he asks why she wants him. She explains they need a new player to shift the stalemate they are currently stuck in, and everyone is scheming for it. He pushes for answers, but Monstriel insists he join her family first, saying what others are planning for him is even worse. The goddess demands love, worship, and praise in return, offering the same to Hyunmoo in a lover's relationship. Bro feels the allure of her offer, tempted by the power and approval she promises, thinking it might help him survive alone in hell if he accepts her. As Gaul, the shattering star, begins observing him, Hyunmoo snaps out of the trance, rejecting her offer, stating he already has a girlfriend. Our guy gazes up in the sky at the silent glowing star and thinks he must have angered Monstriel, but she tells him it would be a waste for a hero to have just one girlfriend. Initially, she thought he'd come to his senses after being eaten by Yogoleme a few times, but instead, she decides to grant him a way out by finishing his toy, since he rejected the easier way she proposed. Spiders swarm onto Hyunmoo's gloved hand as Monstriel orders them to cocoon him. Meanwhile, Kurson and Renian follow the web trail. Renian leads him to Hyunmoo's cocoon and urges him to tear it open. Inside, Hyunmoo lies still, and Kurson raises him in the air and punches his gut to wake him. He wakes up teary-eyed. Kurson urges them to start moving, but Hyunmoo collapses on his knees, asking them to wait. Renian jumps at the opportunity to drink his blood, saying it will heal him, but Hyunmoo angrily refuses. She teases him, but he snaps at her, blaming her for almost dying, which risked the quest restarting. Hyunmoo shifts his focus, clearing the webs to see where they are. A strange orc stands still, covered in spiders and webs, and he wonders what such a creature is doing here. Kurson calls out, curious about the item on Hyunmoo's left hand, as it's something he's never seen before. Hyunmoo notices a sixth finger on the Oshet's gauntlet, recalling Monstriel's words about completing his toy. He opens his inventory and finds the item he's looking for. Renian asks about it, and he reminds her of the skeleton they found earlier, revealing he stole an item from it. Admiral Len's monocle, a legendary item that lets him examine objects at the cost of mana. Using the monocle, he identifies the item on his hand as Oshet's six-finger hand. This legendary and real item can be worn on both hands, and its upgraded stats triple his grip strength, ensuring he can hold onto a captured target with webs unless he chooses to release them, or the glove is destroyed. Dude has never encountered an item labeled as a real item, making him question whether his previously acquired legendary items were fake, or if this glove is of a higher grade. Smirking, he thinks victory would be easy with such a powerful toy, but Kurson reminds him they need to leave. Outside, the ghasts discover a large hole in the ground with a broken pipe dripping with blood. One monster drinks the blood, and the others go wild from the scent, swarming into the pipe. As they move through it, one of the ghasts get tangled in web and a mosquito begins feeding on it, prompting the other monsters join in and eat their own kind. Turns out, Hyunmoo had resurrected the mosquito as part of his family. He watches the scene before him surrounded by mosquitoes, and the webs from his glove hold the monster in place. As the ghasts devour one of their own, Hyunmoo sends another mosquito to repeat the cycle. Watching the chaos unfold from the tunnel, he smirks in satisfaction while he lets a few mosquitoes feed on his own arm to turn them into his kin. The reason these mosquitoes obey him is because, before the quest began, Hyunmoo's experiments showed he could control only a limited number of beings with family skill. However, he found that he could control more smaller beings than larger ones. Additionally, the mosquitoes that died from his toxic blood came back with some resistance to poisons, giving him an effective way to deal with the monsters outside. Kurson comments on how unfortunate it is that these strong beings are brainless, which makes Hyunmoo praise the goblin's quick thinking for picking a shelter with multiple exits, smart enough to keep them from getting trapped while dealing with the ghasts. Just as Hyunmoo feels confident that surviving the next 48 hours in this place might be easy, dizziness hits and he collapses. Kurson rushes to his side, worried. Hyunmoo realizes the mosquitoes drained more blood than he expected. He'll need a new plan. Kurson helps him up just as they hear something slicing through the nest of web, drawing closer. Sensing a smarter, more dangerous presence than the ghasts, he summons his weapon. Hyunmoo tells Kurson to stay back. The space is tight, and he needs room to fight. Multiple pairs of green eyes glare at them from the dark. As Hyunmoo tries to assess their numbers, a soldier in uniform approaches, half-shadowed by darkness, followed by others. When the light reveals them, Hyunmoo sees they are zombies in uniform, known as the Hungry, all level 23. Their leader orders them to hunt our poor guy. He locks the blade into his glove's grip, tangles it in web from the gauntlet, and hurls it at an enemy's head. The bleeding blade's special trait lets him inject his blood directly into the target. Hyunmoo pulls his blade free, watching as the zombies gather around the one he just injected with his blood, tearing it apart. The leader, furious, quickly orders his troops to refocus on Hyunmoo, who is trying to run away, and they take off after him. Crawling out of the sewers, Hyunmoo briefly thinks about reasoning with the zombies, but discards the idea. They're no longer human and are fully under Yogalim's control. The zombies, though, are at the same level as Hyunmoo, still they have military training. When they start shooting, one bullet grazes our guy's leg, prompting their leader to orders the troops to stop wasting ammo. Hyunmoo feels a brief sense of relief at that, and starts thinking of an escape. Suddenly a pin-drop silence surrounds him. Then he checks his leg. His blood has stopped flowing. After that, the air fills with the voices of ghasts. If he were still in the sewers, he could have easily survived, but in an open space, he's too vulnerable. With only 46 minutes left on the quest timer, he knows he could be killed many times over before it expires. As all the zombies climb out of the sewers, Hyunmoo's regeneration perk activates due to his critical health. With zombies in front and ghasts closing in from behind, he pulls out a crystal stone from his inventory, consumes it, and feels his mana flow, fully restoring his strength. When the enemies get close, he uses his domination skill, which forces the zombies to leap over him and start attacking the ghasts. Due to his skill, zombies were more attracted to the amplified stench of Hyunmoo's blood coming out of the ghasts which were bitten by his mosquitoes. Instead of controlling them, he simply showed them what they craved is inside the ghasts. Watching the zombies tear into the other creatures, he couldn't help but wonder if this is what humanity looked like before extinction. Suddenly gunshots ring out. The zombies are set in position, with Hyunmoo in their crosshairs. His domination skill doesn't affect the remaining zombies due to their distance. The zombies switch their guns to automatic and aim at him. Just as their leader commands them to fire, something unexpected happens. A force splits their heads from their bodies. It's Kurson who has come to his boss's rescue. In his hands is the legendary Scythe of the Winter Gatherer, a weapon that was given to him as a reward by Hyunmoo, which tracks nearby enemies and inflicts frost upon killing them. The scythe once belonged to undead slaves, the Winter Duke's hunting dogs. The Duke, who hated others seeing him, never showed himself, sending the Winter Gatherer to deal with intruders. Though no one's seen him, a chance still remains. After Kurson decapitates the zombies, he tells Hyunmoo to save his thanks. There'll be plenty more chances. The leader, enraged by the loss of his group, picks up a gun from the ground and tries to fire, but the scythe's ability has frozen the gun's nozzle. Confused, the zombie loses focus, giving Kurson the opportunity to attack him. Hyunmoo, witnessing him, thinks that previously, Kurson used to hesitate whenever Hyunmoo asked for help, but ever since he got that weapon, he's been surprisingly obedient, a clear slave to material things. While our guy is lost in thought, a ghast lunges at him. He dodges just in time, only for more to follow, until the zombies turn on them and start devouring the ghasts instead. Scanning the area, Hyunmoo realizes the zombies have doubled, and his mana's running low. He can't maintain domination much longer. Just then, swarms of mosquitoes flood in, drawn by his blood and triggered into a frenzy now that night has fallen. To protect himself from the mosquitoes, Hyunmoo puts on a spiderweb poncho he made, while the zombies and ghasts are overwhelmed by the mosquitoes. In the chaos of close combat, the creatures can't tell friend from foe. With most enemies frozen by the scythe, has a real shot at lasting till the timer ends. He tries to stay focused on surviving the 48 hours instead of wiping out every enemy, but he lets his guard down. A nearby zombie bites his leg. As Yogalim watches in amusement, he crushes its head, but the bite has already caused dangerous bleeding. To recover, he calls on his kin mosquitoes to draw blood and help replenish him. A scream escapes Hyunmoo as he collapses once the mosquitoes suck out too much blood out of him. The ghasts starts to close in on him, and just as one lunges with razor-sharp claws, he snaps, tearing its arm off like a rabid beast. His teeth sharpen, skin cracked. Our main character goes feral, shredding them in a wild frenzy. Another ghast lunges at Hyunmoo. He jumps on its back and grabs his face hard, biting into its flesh. The blood of the hungry mixes with his poison blood, adding a new trait to his abilities, medium toxicity, with low acidity and ineffectiveness. Drinking their blood boosts his strength by 30% until it's all used up. But it causes intense hunger, rapidly burns any food, and on an empty stomach, it starts devouring the user's own body. The skill boosts his strength by burning through his own body. Hyunmoo sees his hand thinning, no blood left. His body feeds on itself since he has lacks blood at the moment. Hunger hits hard, like his stomach is eating him alive. He crushes a zombie's head in his grip, and suddenly, 3 stars, Conquering Star Ardon, Whispering Star Monstriel, and Monstrous Star Agustro, focus on him. Now that he's tasted real power, Hyunmoo understands how the stars feel when they crush people with agony, force their submission, and then look down on them from above. Gripping his blood-flowing blade, Hyunmoo mocks the stars, daring them to judge him. He lets out a loud roar, gathering all his power and charges into the horde of enemies, blades slicing through them from the middle of their bodies. But a ghast lands a brutal punch to his face, slamming him to the ground. It pounces at our poor guy, crushing his head into the dirt and slashing at his chest with its claws. His vision is overwhelmed by the sight of the ghasts, their tongues hanging hungrily as they crowd around him. Hyunmoo is surrounded by ghasts, who begin devouring him. He screams in pain as his hands stop trembling, and hunger takes over. With a feral growl, he bites into the enemies that were eating him, ripping them apart. He curses them, promising to tear off their body parts. With his teeth bared and his gloved hand clawing at them, he crushes their heads in his grip and devours their remains. The zombie leader, staring at him from the ground, regrets accepting the dinner invitation and bringing his soldiers along. Watching the monsters fall, he thinks about escaping, but gives in to his curiosity. The captain inquires Hyunmoo about his identity and clan, hoping to determine if he's part of his squad. Hyunmoo stops chewing and focuses on him. The zombie grabs a gun, but it's out of bolters, so he tries to retreat and his hand lands on a severed ghast's hand. Using its sharp nail, the zombie slashes at Hyunmoo, sending him to the ground. Just as the zombie prepares to strike again, Hyunmoo swallows the zombie's entire hand and bites off its face, continuing to devouring it. Finally, the timer expires and the quest, The Bottom of the Barrel, ends. Hyunmoo receives a silver box, which upgrades to gold due to the level to difficulty contrast. Yogalim then transforms the gold box into a present box, acknowledging that Hyunmoo has completed the challenge. The system notifies that his return stone will stay active for 28 days until the next quest, and his hunger curse deactivates. Exhausted, Hyunmoo lies on the ground as the area around him glows, and a notification pop up stating he's absorbed a shard. Staring at the notifications, Hyunmoo's stomach growls with hunger. He looks at the bodies scattered around and wonders what he's done. Though he still has some time, he feels like he might starve to death. Out of nowhere, the sound of a trumpet is heard. He thought he was done, but it turns out there's more to come. A group of bizarre monsters, holding flags high, play various musical instruments. Among them are samurai-like creatures, and a figure with a black cloth wrapped around his face sits atop a massive monster, holding its leash. The creature drives a caravan carried by even stronger beings, far superior to zombies or ghasts, who guard the carriage. Hyunmoo watches curiously as the caravan is lowered to the ground. A voice comes from inside the caravan praising Hyunmoo for defeating the enemies, despite not being fully prepared. The speaker is a long, gray-skinned creature adorned with golden jewelry, Kawaro of Satiation and Sloth, level 118. Kawaro is impressed by Hyunmoo's survival despite his low level, which helps him understand the starving star's obsession with him. Believing humans to be extinct, he asks if there are any other survivors. When Hyunmoo remains silent, Kawaro pricks him with a long, sharp nail, drawing blood, and licks his finger. He quickly deduces that there are no other survivors, as if this guy had fallen from the sky. Kawaro had believed all humans perished after the last survivors, John and Maria Keller. Seeing Hyunmoo, so fresh and alive, he sees him as a precious child who shouldn't be left out in the cold. Gathering some corpses and rolling them into a ball, he presses it against our guy's injured leg, healing it completely and allowing him to walk again. Offering Hyunmoo a warm welcome, he invites him to join in the finest feast. However, Hyunmoo, sensing the trap of Yogwame, refuses to be treated as just a meal. On this, the creature bursts out laughing, thinking Hyunmoo is misunderstood. Hunger, he says, is the most basic form of greed. Yogalim's eternal hunger consumes everything: power, influence, desires, and wealth, granting him control over them whenever he wishes. Kawaro reflects on his past when he was a human, telling Hyunmoo that he once felt worthless, trapped by morality and rules, unable to achieve anything. The anger of not getting rewarded for his efforts still lingers. He reads Hyunmoo, sensing the same entitlement in him, realizing that while most people are selfish, only a few are truly consumed by greed. He tries to stir Hyunmoo's curiosity, inviting him to imagine what he could achieve by climbing higher. They plan to be like snakes, devouring everything, even the world itself. Kawaro invites Hyunmoo to join the family of Yogalimi. The scene then shifts to Yumin, who has fallen asleep at her desk while researching. She wakes up and gazes out the window. As the sun sets in Yumin's world, the crimson moon burns in Hyunmoo's. Pretending to give in, he activates his glove and reaches his hand out to Kawaro, who believes he's chosen to join them. But our guy grips the gray-skinned hand and bites into Kawaro's flesh. Enraged, Kawaro throws him to the ground. Hyunmoo taunts him, asking if all traitors taste worse than zombies. Kawaro, still licking his wound, grows furious at the insult and launches forward with electrifying speed, halting right in front of Hyunmoo. Deciding that Hyunmoo is a lost cause, Kawaro threatens to kill the last human. However, our bro isn't fooled. He knows they need him alive to break the stalemate they are at. He understands that he's the new player, the solution to their problem. Kawaro is taken aback, so Hyunmoo decides make the best use of this opportunity, daring the creature to finish him off. Grabbing him by the neck and lifting him high, Kawaro snarls, asking how he wants to die, crushed, broken, or smashed. He demands Hyunmoo to scream with that relentless mouth of his. Kawaro briefly wonders if Hyunmoo truly fell from the sky. He's unable to believe that the human thinks that he sided with monsters to wipe out humanity. As he tightens his grip around Hyunmoo's neck, ready to end him, a system notification flashes. The monstrous star, Augustro, has begun observing. A booming voice erupts, lifting Hyunmoo into the air. Corpses are thrown around and Kawaro is blasted away, crashing to the ground. Hyunmoo's feet touch the ground again, but he feels weak and melts down on the ground. The vibrations from the explosion spread to Kawaro's people, causing buildings to crumble. Panic sets in as they realize the chaos unfolding. Kawaro, now on his knees, screams for forgiveness, claiming he never intended to break the rules. He just got carried away. He orders his people to retreat, then turns and flees. As the fleet vanishes, Hyunmoo hears another scream, followed by crackling lightning sparks. He wonders what all of this means. He reflects on the recent events, realizing that Kawaro was afraid of something beyond the sky. Gritting his teeth, he screams at the sky, furious at the unseen beings who play with him like a toy, even as his body is torn, crushed, or scorched. He is determined to survive no matter what challenges they throw at him, but he collapses from exhaustion. In a brief vision, he sees Yumin bathed in sunlight, welcoming him back, until Renian's voice snaps him back to reality. She points to the bite mark on her leg, something he did after losing his mind. His eyes glowed green and he looked feral. She assures him it's fine, that she healed by drinking his blood, so now they are even. Hyunmoo checks his inventory and finds a gift box from Yogolimi. Inside is a platinum card edged in white gold. It shines brightly before transforming into a plain, thin blade, leaving him disappointed. Still, due to the rarity of the card, decides to examine it closely. After inspecting it, he discovers its gluttony, a weapon with low stats that absorbs and gains abilities from weapons that are sacrificed to it. Once wielded by Aladamaharo, kin of Yogoleme, the weapon's true form remains unknown as it always takes the shape of whatever it devours. Research shows that many powerful figures have used gluttony at least once. Though still disappointed, Hyunmoo reasons that even if the sword looks plain, it's genuine, and trusted by the influential. Hyunmoo awkwardly tries feeding his blood-soaked short blade to Gluttony. At first nothing happens, but upon second try, a spark flashes as Gluttony swallows the blade and absorbs its appearance as a newly forged legendary sword flowing with blood. Its stats are also absorbed, and its special effect allows it to drain bodily fluids from foes. If the expelled fluid touches allies, they're healed, but if it contacts enemies, it causes damage. Pleased with the upgrade, Hyunmoo tells Renian he likes it and can get stronger with it. She remarks that she enjoys seeing him happy and hopes he becomes tastier, which makes Hyunmoo uneasy. He tells Renian he's going to the spot where they found the skeleton. Leaving it with its belongings feels wrong, and he hopes to at least identify it and give it a proper tombstone. He thinks whoever it was, surviving to the end, must have been a rancor. The zombies had human intellect but craved human flesh. The Kawaro, once human, now controlled monsters. Hyunmoo wonders if he's any different from them since he orders around Kursen and Renian too, but reassures himself that at least he hasn't given in to greed. Hyunmoo admires the skeleton, who was once a human too, for protecting others alone in a world of monsters and searches for clues about its identity. Opening a drawer, he finds a journal and begins reading, hoping it holds the answers. High-grade items aren't the only treasures. Valuable information can shape the world. The journal in his hands has documented everything from the creation of the first dungeon to humanity's end. The journal details every event, date, and preventive measure, making Hyunmoo realize that if it's true, he holds the key to saving humanity. In awe of the skeleton, he vows to honor its last wishes. With this valuable knowledge, he resolves to either restore everything or change the course of events, prioritizing humanity's survival. Deep in a forest, a woman frantically calls for her child, Maru, who is nowhere to be found. She hears rustling in the leaves, turns, and screams as she sees what appears to be a zombie. Hyunmoo laughs as he recounts this story to Yumin, marveling at how the woman overreacted. He jokes that the woman overreacted by calling the cops, and Yumin, amused, wonders how he managed to look so much like a zombie. Yumin shifts the topic, asking why he wanted her to teach him how to spend money. She points out how people love luxuriously, but what she likes about him is that he's different from them. This makes her wonder if he secretly wanted to experience that kind of life too. They toast, and he says after working so hard, it's finally his time to live like a king. She admits she misunderstood, thinking he'd find it pretentious. He retorts, frustrated, that those who criticize without ever experiencing a life like his lack empathy. She admits to thinking that he yearns for luxury. Hyunmoo says he has his flaws and admits to having a rude side but doesn't blame his lack of parents. He accepts who he is and believes it wouldn't have changed even with parents. Yumin smiles and tells him that of all the guys she's dated, he's the nicest one. Hyunmoo, confused, asks how a grad student manages to find so much time to date or go to restaurants like this. He jokes she should be drowning in schoolwork. Irritated, she snaps that outside their dates, she's stuck in the lab or doing fieldwork for her professor. The conversation reminds her of the blood test she ran to check his mana levels for the next rank up. As he admits his own attempts to find it out were pointless, a notification suddenly dings. He's jumped from level 20 to 26. Confused, he asks Yumin about the results of her research. She informs him that his user ability rank is non-existent. When he asks if that's good or bad, she suggests it's not something they should discuss in a restaurant. Meanwhile, in Hell, Kurson, wielding his scythe, is finishing off the last of the ghasts. His clothes suddenly tear apart. He's bulked up. The hobgoblin has just leveled up to 27, now even more muscular. Back in the real world, Hyunmoo tries to read Yumin's research notes. When she comes out of the shower, she's surprised he can read German, but while his language skill lets him read it, he still doesn't understand the content. Yumin, anticipating this, has a summary ready and shows him a picture of red blood cells and crystals accumulated in his dantian. She explains that mana typically accumulates in the dantian, and when taking a sample from that area, crystals are often present. The shape of the crystals determines a user's rank. Needle-shaped crystals indicate a 1-star, triangle-shaped indicate 3 stars. Hyunmoo's crystals, however, are circular, a shape never before seen in any hunter. Yumin recalls that the only time such a sample was collected was from a monster. Memories of when he lost control and became a monster flash through Hyunmoo's mind at her words. Noticing his tension, Yumin quickly clarifies. She's not calling him a monster, just noting similarities. Mana has the strongest influence on the body, so it's possible he's a higher rank than anyone has ever seen. She's even heard rumors of 5-star beings, meaning he might be beyond 6. When she asks for his thoughts, he's confident that he is not a 1-star. He recalls the first message he saw in Hell. It only said mana had awakened in his body, never mentioning a rank. When she tries to confirm if he was level 20, he corrects her. He's already jumped to level 26. She's astonished that he leveled up 6 times in just 11 days. She realizes the change in his appearance must be linked to this and wonders if she should get an assistant to help with her increasingly complicated research. Hyunmoo, however, is hesitant. He doesn't want anyone to know his identity unless he trusts them completely. He worries Yumin may have already found someone, but she denies it and shares her suspicion that Seojon Laboratory is onto something. The Seojon Laboratory, a department managing special abilities and dungeon-related matters nationwide, has been delaying this year's competency level report, likely because of his test results. They've also sent him several emails, and scouts have been looking for him. Hyunmoo unlocks his phone, realizing the messages he thought were spam might be important. Yumin watches with a sad expression. Noticing this, he puts his phone away and gestures for her to come closer. As he dries her hair, Hyunmoo offers to buy her the equipment she needs, knowing her research is tough at the lab. She replies that it's expensive and there's no space for it. He says he is thinking to buy a huge isolated house that could also be used as bunker. Yumin laughs, but when he accidentally turns the heat up on her, she screams as her forehead reddens. Apologizing, Hyunmoo blows on her forehead, trying to convince her that he can't depend on her forever. She asks where she would do after he moves her, teasing her. He says he doesn't know what she'll do, but quickly assures her she'll go with him. She notices the extra scars on his hands and grows concerned. He dismisses it, saying he ran out of healing potion, but the truth is, he couldn't regenerate after his last time in Hell. She touches his scar, asking if it hurts. He replies it'll fade soon. Surprising him, she bites his arm, saying he smells good. He's terrified but calms down when she admits to just wanting to mark him. He gently strokes her hair and devours her cheek. The next morning, Yumin is still asleep while Hyunmoo is up early, reviewing his past battles recorded by his battle helper skill. The memories of turning into a monster during his fight with Yogalim's family unsettle him. Just as he tries to shake it off and give it another try, a notification pops up. He's acquired a fragment. Examining the patterns on his hand, he discovers its shape has changed, and the fragment is level 2 with the power of kin absorption. The details about it are incomplete, with missing words. Checking the fragment's power, he learns its special ability is to turn anyone the user kills into a kin that can be summoned back at any location, though there's a risk of losing control if the target is higher level than the user. The new info reveals he can absorb a target's energy, mana, stamina, abilities, and a portion of their skills for a short time. How long depends on how well fed the target was. It reminds him of the old consume skill from classic games. He thinks it could have been helpful in Yogalim's trial, and starts to suspect the skill might be tied to that event. At that moment, Park Hwiso, called by our guy, enters the gym, thinking Hyunmoo wants a rematch. Our guy tells him to hold still while he inspects him through his lens. Offended by his tone, Hwiso demands to know what the man is trying to do. The lens reveals the old man's level as 40 and his skills, double cut and stealth without breathing. Annoyed, Huiso questions him for wasting his time, but Hyunmoo praises the man's strength despite the basic skills. To gain his trust, Hyunmoo shows him the lens that reveals his rank and tells him about the test results Yumin brought in order to get his rank corrected. Huiso is surprised to learn Hyunmoo's level is 26, which confirms his earlier suspicion about the delay in the Seojan Laboratory's rank report, an occurrence that has only happened once before. He tells him that Yumin had mentioned complaints from clan leaders, and Huiso agrees this is a significant issue. He explains that a user's rank is tied to wealth, so the clans will likely approach Hyunmoo soon. After returning the lens, Huiso admits to Hyunmoo that he considers him influential. Our guy suggests that if he believes that, then he should switch sides. Though the old man feels honored to be wanted, he has ties he can't easily break. Hyunmoo insists it's for Huiso's own good. The man could swear loyalty now with just words, but later he'd have to beg for the chance. Our bro believes it's only a matter of time before he surpasses Lee Jitae. Hyunmoo asks a favor, wanting to introduce Huiso to someone. He summons Kurson, which catches the old man off guard, prompting him to draw his blade in defense. He reassures him, trying to calm the situation. The goblin, as usual, is a pain, thinking his boss had died due to the lack of contact. The old man is shocked when he hears Kurson call Hyunmoo his boss. Our guy notices his slave's transformed body and asks about it. The goblin explains he enjoyed wielding the scythe, so he sliced through the remaining Yogalim's pigs, which upgraded him. Huiso is stunned, realizing Hyunmoo not only controls a monster but can even communicate with it. The old man calls the goblin a low intellect, which infuriates the him, so the monster attacks him. Huiso blocks with his blade, but Kurson's speed and strength surprises him. The scythe freezes his blade, and Kurson dares him to jabber more. However, our guy jumps in and tries to de-escalate the situation, asking Kurson to back off. The old man puts his weapon away. Hyunmoo then asks the old man for his opinion on the goblin, and Huiso admits to hearing about a goblin in the one-star dungeon that scared newbies. Our guy mentions that he needs a favor, which makes the man think that he wants him to harbor a monster. Hyunmoo says that he only needs the goblin sent somewhere. Huiso hesitates, but he clarifies he only needs Kurson sent to a specific place, a dungeon. The journal Hyunmoo obtained revealed that a flood is soon set to occur in Jeoldu dungeon that will break the walls within 10 minutes. Hunters will manage to block it initially, but their involvement in corruption will be revealed, causing confusion and unpreparedness for the disasters that will follow. Hyunmoo tells the man that he plans to prepare for that his own way, so he's sending Kurson to the same exact dungeon. Huiso is initially reluctant to get involved with a monster, but Hyunmoo flashes him with a piece of crystal moss, a quiet threat to the old man's supply chain, quickly gaining his compliance. He requests a raise, but Huiso warns it's difficult to increase profits by 150%. Hyunmoo asks for a twofold raise. The man remarks that our boy would be in serious trouble if he wasn't the sole supplier. Hyunmoo cuts him off, offering that he will double the supply as well. It's what Huiso had been asking for all along, but Hyunmoo had held out, causing a shortage. Hyunmoo had realized that the top hunters just wanted crystal moss to increase their rank faster. A few days later, Hyunmoo and Yumin visit a house. The agent shows them a massive, bunker-like home. It was started by a paranoid father during the military regime and expanded by his son, convinced that the North would be bombed on day. Ever since dungeons appeared, the grandson feared monsters would escape and destroy humanity. So, he completed this house, making it fortified against attacks, bombs, and monster. Hyunmoo finds it ironic that the grandson's paranoia is about to become reality. He sees the house's advantages and asks the agent why he's showing it so late. The agent reveals that the grandson, once terrified of the outside, was killed attempting to escape the bunker, the murderer never found. Despite only one exit and full CCTV coverage, the case remains unsolved. The grandson's paranoia led to illegal building modifications, making it unstable. One more reason the agent hadn't introduced it earlier. Hyunmoo thought Yumin wouldn't approve, but she seems excited to investigate the house for ghosts. Hyunmoo argues the market price is unreasonable given the property's issues and offers to pay in cash. At their request, the agent calls the owner to negotiate a fair deal. The owner then asks to speak to Hyunmoo, and it turns out the property is owned by Seojan Laboratory, and Chief Du Wonkyung is in charge of the sale. Moments later, her car pulls up in front of the house, leaving Yumin stunned. Du Wonkyung rushes toward Hyunmoo, much to Yumin's displeasure. Turning her attention towards Yumin, the two women exchange passive-aggressive barbs, mocking one another. Hyunmoo watches their heated exchange, uneasy. Then, the professor shifts her focus to him, addressing the real issue. Confirming he has no clan affiliation, she offers him the shelter for free, along with an annual income of 8,000, a public official's pension, and an insurance card on par with a vice minister only if he agrees to work for their laboratory. He is initially skeptical, but Du Wonkyung explains that the laboratory would only need occasional blood and physical tests from him. Hyunmoo isn't interested in being an experimental subject, especially since he is rich. But the woman insists this building can't be bought with money alone. She demands an immediate answer, given both sides have packed schedules. Hyunmoo states that money doesn't matter to him, but sets two conditions. She cannot object if he joins another clan, and his study results must remain confidential within the institute. Do Wonkyung agrees without hesitation, which makes Hyunmoo suspicious. Her swift acceptance hints at knowledge of his abilities and suggests that whatever the laboratory is planning, his involvement might be key to its success. On a rainy night outside the Joldu dungeon, a man drags a suitcase toward the entrance. He's stopped by armed forces who demand to know his identity. The man explains that he's a hunter from Sungjin's team, which began an expedition in the dungeon 7 days ago. They were set to receive more supplies after 6 days if they hadn't returned. He shows his license and return scroll, explaining he'll drop off supplies and leave. The agents check their documents and debate whether to check his bag, but ultimately decide to let him pass, noting that the time is of the essence and the team must be low on supplies. They warn him of increased fluctuations in the area and advise caution. The hunter steps through the barrier and inside the dungeon, opening the suitcase. Kurson emerges, and the man asks if this is all he's supposed to do. Kurson gestures for him to leave. The hunter wonders why Park Huiso is dealing with a talking monster but lets it go. Clearing his debt to him matters more and tears the return scroll. Kurson laughs at the hunter's fear, mocking the idea that it takes a week for hunters to clear the dungeon when he could do it in 3 days. Meanwhile, back at home, Hyunmoo returns to find Yumin trying to burn down the house in her attempt to kill an unusually resilient mosquito. Hyunmoo had asked her to research whether he can control his kin while unconscious, but she seems increasingly paranoid, convinced that the grandson of the house was killed by mosquitoes. Later, Hyunmoo shows her the stocks he has been investing in. Seeing only blue-chip stocks, she jokingly asks if Seoul is about to be bombed. He replies that if he knew, he would have already left the country. Despite thinking he's an idiot, she still supports him. Hyunmoo, considering whether to reveal more to her, decides to share the truth about the future. He shows her the Doomsday Diary, a record of humanity's downfall. She worries he's going through 8th grade syndrome, naming skills and acting cool, just like new ability users often do after awakening. He insists the Doomsday Diary is real, but she just laughs. His phone chimes with a delivery confirmation. She asks if it's from the lab. He calls it the cornerstone of his grand debut, and she teases, asking if that's straight from the diary too. The scene shifts to Hyunmoo standing before the beautiful Jeoldu Mountain, reflecting on how this once serene place is about to become the epicenter of humanity's downfall. The dungeon break that will occur here will ignite the extinction of humanity, and Hyunmoo, once living on scraps, will rise as their savior. Hyunmoo scans the hilltop, trying to find the civil servant who, according to the journal, will be the first to notice the dungeon flooding. Spotting him, he greets the man, introducing himself as a hunter. The man is suspicious, realizing Hyunmoo is not a local hunter, and questions his motives. Playing it cool, Hyunmoo claims he's just a curious newbie and asks what the man is photographing. The man explains he's studying the flow-type dungeon's entrance, trying to predict when monsters will appear. He records the state of the dungeon daily. Further explains that the flow-type dungeons shift their structure and shape with each exploration, making every entry feel like stepping into a completely new dungeon, making it more prone to monster escapes. The man says it's doubtful that the dungeon will flood like Baekdu Dungeon did in North Korea 8 years ago, when a sudden monster surge made containment impossible. At that time, rumors circulated about a massive mushroom cloud appearing in the dungeon area. Since the country is a closed-off one, the front line remained unaware and kept fighting non-stop to contain the monsters. The man excuses for being paranoid and worrying too much, also mentions that no one seems interested in his work. Hyunmoo quietly admires him, knowing how important his research will be to humankind, and asks if there have been any changes today. The man confirms something seems off, so our guy requests to look at the pictures. The man hands Hyunmoo the camera, apologizing for the rushed quality. After inspecting them, Hyunmoo returns the camera, addressing him as Kang Hachel-si, praising his research and telling him it will be crucial in the future. As Hyunmoo leaves, the man thinks it's the first time his research wasn't made fun of and wonders how Hyunmoo knows his name, as he never introduced himself. Returning to the ground, he realizes the photograph he saw matched the one from his scrapbook. He scans the area. The patrol team is ready, but according to the journal, the dungeon walls will collapse within 10 minutes, turning Hapjeondong into chaos. Hyunmoo had accelerated the event which was supposed to happen in 2 months. By releasing Kurson in the dungeon, he pushed the disaster ahead of schedule. He did this so he can take control of the event. Everything so far has been just a tutorial. Once the real game begins, him being a hunter won't be enough, not even a clan leader. He must rise higher, reaching for the stars. For a brief moment, everything feels eerily calm. Then ground suddenly shakes violently as the flood begins. Kurson has done his part, and the chaos is now unfolding. Inside the dungeon, a journalist reports the escape of monsters, with gunshots echoing across the walls. Despite a successful defense so far, concerns about declaring a flood crisis are growing since the monsters keep emerging. The government and clans blame each other for mismanagement. Branch leader of them demands to know the status, and his soldier explain that the first line of defense has already collapsed, leaving the second line vulnerable to the rapidly increasing monster numbers. The soldier urges his leader to declare the flood crisis, but the leader hesitates, fearing mass panic among Hapjeongdong's 200,000 residents. He also dreads the added burden such a declaration would bring on his shoulders. That man reports they can't reach Captain Daesung, who's still in the Jiri Mountain dungeon, and the Gangnam branch is unreachable, as CEO Lee Ji-tae is in Switzerland, and Commander Park Do-young is unable to be contacted like always. Though support from Na Howl and other clans is on the way, the leader knows that even if they manage to block the flood with available hunters, the absence of the commanders will cause them greatly. The higher-ups will shift the blame on him, cutting him off. As monsters approach the second line, the leader orders hunters to prepare for the Ratmen, known for being as fierce as felines. He uses his skills to hold them off with a roar, buying them some time, but it's clear they can't stop the flood. The wall starts shattering as pressure by the Ratmen grows, and a large piece crashes into the leader, knocking him to the ground. A level 28 werewolf boss monster appears, howling loudly. Just as the leader is about to give up, a hand grips his shoulder. He thinks it is Commander Oh Daesung, but it's not. It's Hyunmoo, who has arrived to help. The journalist reports the breach of the wall and the surge of Ratmen. Among them, a man in non-hunter attire charges at the herd. Hyunmoo, seeing that the rats lack a title and are at level 17, he thinks even those surviving on trash in hell reach level 15. He stretches, then launches into a flurry of kicks and punches, hearing their bones cracking. He gets confused due to them all dying with a single blow, and realizes it's easier to kill these as compared to the ones in hell. So, he is left wondering how much easier it would be to defeat the titled monsters. Bringing his focus back to his plan, he activates his domination skill. The Ratmen instantly collapse, coughing up blood and dying. Hyunmoo himself and the men around him are stunned by how quickly they fall. As the boss monster approaches, the branch leader orders his men to assemble, but Hyunmoo is too excited to test his skills on the boss. The leader warns him to be careful, but our guy holds his ground, eager to know how much his training in hell paid him off. The beast lunges, claws ready, but the champ dodges and lands a kick to its gut, causing it to stagger. Another kick follows, and the beast collapses on the ground, terrified, its tail tucked between its legs. Hyunmoo rests his foot on its chest, while both the reporter and soldiers watch in astonishment. The soldiers speculate if the beast's fear is due to a skill, but they find it strange. Even weaker monsters are hostile toward humans, yet these creatures fear the unknown man, as if he's the real monster. The beast bolts toward the wall, trying to escape, which disappoints our guy who is looking for a tougher fight. So he hurls a hell dart soaked in the blood of the hungry. It strikes mid-air, sending the beast crashing to the ground, only for it to transform, growing stronger. The army of hunters witnesses the beast's transformation and grows horrified, thinking they're doomed. The beast howls, pushing the men back with its force, making them realize they need at least a vice-captain-level hunter to stand a chance against it. Smaller werewolves appear behind the boss, and the branch leader considered declaring a flood, realizing this situation is beyond their ability to handle. The beast's level increases by 10, and is now titled the Lunacy-Driven Werewolf at level 38. Hyunmoo recalls that in hell, he would have fled upon seeing this, but the difficulty here is much lower as compared to hell. He activates the blood of the hungry through kin absorption specialization, which grants him the curse thirst that will linger for a duration of time. Along with it, he temporarily gains a blood-sucking skill, slightly boosting his abilities. As the beast leaps at him, the soldiers tense, but a crash resounds. Hyunmoo blocks the beast's claw and taunts it for acting brave after the transformation, commenting it must have forgotten the previous beating. He raises his punch, but here a smaller werewolf lunges at him. He swiftly dodges, avoiding the attack. Hyunmoo acknowledges their camaraderie, finding them better than his previous opponents, Ratmen. As soldiers watch him surrounded, fear takes hold. They hesitate and consider retreating. Shame grips their leader for failing to act while Hyunmoo risks his life doing their job. Hyunmoo continues dodging attacks, disappointed by the difference in difficulty and urging the monsters to put up a better fight for his debut. Just then, Lunacy-Driven Wolf takes a powerful kick, crashing to the ground as the branch leader steps in to assist Hyunmoo. Angry at the interference, he scolds the man and raises his punch just to defend the guy from the werewolf approaching behind him. Using the branch leader's shoulder for support, he jumps and grabs the beast by its tongue, delivering a powerful kick that shatters the werewolf, leaving its head dangling in his hand. Another werewolf charges at him, but it suddenly collapses, face first, with weapons jammed in its back. Hunters rush to remove their weapons from the beast. They're shocked to see the severed head of the boss monster. Hyunmoo tells them to focus on the front line, as the Ratmen continue to swarm. The branch leader orders the elimination of Ratmen and to assemble the front line. Looking up at the sky, Hyunmoo feels he hasn't made much of an impact in his debut during this 1.5-hour duration. The branch leader, Seo Taekyung, introduces himself as the leader of the Almighty Lotus Group and Gangbook and offers him a handshake. Hyunmoo recalls that the average level of this gang is low, meaning Seo Taekyung is likely in the top 10% of the nation. Hyunmoo shakes his hand and thanks him for the help. Reporters capture the moment, announcing that the situation is resolved and highlighting the branch leader shaking hands with the one who did the most work. Reporters swarm him, firing questions about his clan and the werewolf's transformation. Hyunmoo introduces himself as a new hunter, dedicated to serving the people. Memories of his past, abandoned at an orphanage, surviving on scraps of crystal moss, remind him that his redemption is only beginning. On a news channel, Kim Young-so, the chief researcher, discusses how high-ranked skills like Howl affect only feline monsters. Another expert suggests that Hyunmoo's Ratmen collapsed due to a new type of mental skill. Professor Han Sung-so of Hunter Studies believes Hyunmoo used at least 3 skills, like body strengthening, increased speed, and coercion, reminding them that there's a reason that terms like double-caster or multi-caster do exist. The debate continues, with some speculating that Hyunmoo may have earned his skills through rare dungeon rewards, or as rumors have it that specializations can be gained under extreme circumstances, like life or death. Others suggest he might possess the ultimate skill, a rare ability seen in hunters who reach level 50. As of now, only Oh Ji-tae and Oh Dae-sung are known to have it in the nation. Behind the scenes, Chief Du Won-kyung of Seojong Laboratory dismisses the experts, knowing that the Ratmen were coerced by Hyunmoo's presence alone, a power she's seen only monsters use in dungeons. Seeing the similarity between Hyunmoo's blood crystals and those of monsters, Won-kyung feels foolish to think of him as a monster. However, the Ratmen's fearful reaction and their sudden deaths raises questions. Even if he used his ultimate, there's still no clear proof. Her staff member, Lee Saiwon, interrupts her while she's busy, informing her of a call from the Blue House. Annoyed, she gives her worker a hard time, but takes the phone when she thinks the call could be on behalf of the president. Speaking briskly, she states she's busy. The voice on the other end introduces himself as Park Kyu, the chief secretary to the president. She realizes things are moving faster than expected. She asks if the president is interested in the ability department all of a sudden. Park Kyu reveals that the call is about the newly emerging rookie, Hyunmoo. Amused by their sudden interest, she asks if they want to take a picture with the brave hunter who blocked the flood and reward him. The secretary clarifies that he's speaking on behalf of the Taesung clan, shattering her hope that the president is interested in the department. She claims the rank assessor is broken, making it impossible to gather details on Hyunmoo. The man, unconvinced, accuses her of deliberately delaying the rank announcement and questions whether the department is trying to secure Hyunmoo for their major project. Believing he already knows everything, she admits the project is confidential and refuses to disclose details. The secretary pushes for early information, assuming she's facing criticism for the delay. Won-kyung is still hesitant, but the secretary offers a new deal. Taesung clan will donate 10 billion to the Hunters' Retirement Fund, double the original amount they were offering. She recalls that the Great Unknown clan had only offered 100 million before Taesung's involvement, and now the sum has increased tenfold. Fearful of losing Hyunmoo to the government or Taesung, she reluctantly agrees to forward the file. The secretary, unfazed, states he's already seen the dungeon recording and is only concerned about stopping the approaching monsters. Won-kyung realizes their true intentions is to use their talent and ends the call. US as Park Kyu considers forwarding it to Taesung and thinks about the money they'll offer. Won-kyung's message arrives, nullifying the deal. Frustrated, Park Kyu rushes to turn on the TV. A news channel announces the results of the rank assessments, revealing Hyunmoo's result, 5 stars. This enrages him, as such an announcement was unexpected. Meanwhile, Hyunmoo is relaxing after a shower when Yumin informs him that his rank has been announced. The news discusses the credibility of the assessment. Thought ranks have known to increase a few times still, no one has ever ranked above 3 stars before. Since the cap for a 5-star rank is level 60, Hyunmoo is now considered stronger than top hunters like Lee Ji-tae and Park Do-young. The news speculates that a level 60 rank could grant even more rare and powerful skills, including the potential for ultimate skills. Yumin informs Hyunmoo that media and hunters are constantly trying to contact him. Hyunmoo's plan is working to get famous, so he gets paid even when he is useless. He asks her about the state of their stocks after the flood. She tells him that though the stocks dropped, their put options made a 30% gain while the market was recovering from the disaster. He instructs her to buy all available Taesung stocks with their earnings. Yumin, slightly taken aback, explains that since the clan is on the northern expedition, they'll likely avoid any losses. Hyunmoo, however, knows this will prompt Lee Ji-tae to make a move. Park Hwiso's car stops in front of Hyunmoo's new house. Hyunmoo invites him inside, but the old man asks for a walk instead. They head toward the surrounding forest, where the man reveals Hyunmoo's new fake identity as a businessman who, after gaining experience abroad, created welfare programs for hunters using independently gathered resources. However, he started from the bottom in Korea and saw the harsh realities of the dungeon-related industry. Hyunmoo is satisfied with the identity, and Hwiso feels relieved. Out of nowhere, Park Hwiso's cane strikes our guy who blocks it, his stats boosted by the Hell's Strongest title against a level 40 human. The man, furious, demands to know if Hyunmoo caused the flood. He assures the old man that he never starts anything he can't control. Equipping his legendary glove, he mentions that there were no casualties despite holding back his abilities. Yet Huiso remains furious, suspecting his motives, either fame or increasing his value. Hyunmoo shatters the cane's cover, revealing a blade, and draws his own blood-flowing sword. The man dodges and strikes again, but Bro blocks with a sword that catches Huiso's attention. It's new. Hyunmoo recalls that cane swords usually break easily, but since Huiso's sword isn't budging, it must be valuable. They engage in a duel, with our champ evading the old man's attacks effortlessly. The opponent is surprised by his improvement and feels the need to subdue him now more than ever. He explains that the flood was inevitable, so he timed it to take advantage of the situation, rather than letting it happen uncontrollably. Huiso doubts his intentions, thinking he didn't care about the people, but Dude tries to assure him. The man questions whether Hyunmoo would have stopped the flood had it not been for attention. Seeing the old man as stubborn and principled, he knows words won't settle this, so he dares him to resist and leaps into another attack. Huiso, left with no other choice, apologizes for using Hyunmoo's own gift against him, then pulls out the legendary ring Trust of Urhost that doubles his stats temporarily. He evades with his sword, catching Hyunmoo off guard and sending him to the ground. Without hesitation, Huiso leaps from behind, launching another attack. Just as Hyunmoo stands up, Huiso is already in front of him, surprising him with his newfound speed. The man swings his sword, but Orgai swiftly dodges and gets behind him. Huiso warns that it won't be easy to get his back. His enemy's neck swells suddenly by the kin mosquitoes Orgai just resurrected, and remarks that the old man should have expected this considering he already noticed his improvements. Huiso didn't anticipate the deadly poison he is now inflicted with. Seeing this, the man's bodyguards rush in. Hyunmoo summons Kurson, who arrives with his own forces. As the two sides clash, Orgai expresses his disappointment at their broken trust. Stripping of his glove, he reveals the other ring from the pair, Obedience of Ukelheart, which lowers the abilities of anyone possessing the opposite ring. Huiso had miscalculated. With a quiet apology, Hyunmoo drives his sword into his back, and the blood inside it starts flowing. The old man's trembling hands finally go still. Kurson asks what to do with the men and is ordered to retreat. Once alone, Hyunmoo asks the man to get up and reveals that he poisoned him with a special poison that heals allies but harms enemies, depending on Hyunmoo's decision. He asks why our hero saved his life, and he replies that if the old man truly intended to kill him, he wouldn't have approached him directly. The man comments that Hyunmoo seems like a veteran, and Orgai thinks in his mind that in some places he actually is. Huiso thinks though Orgai has a good nature. His concern stems from Hyunmoo's faulty judgment. He fears Orgai might make reckless decisions. Partially agreeing, Bro assures him that he is neither a monster nor trying to become one. He clarifies that even without personal gain, he would have stopped the flood if he saw the signs, because he is not a monster. He commends Huiso for his righteousness, admitting he once saw the old man as a heartless monster. Huiso agrees but explains that he follows strict rules and deeply values humanity. If the world were collapsing, he would protect it. That's why Hyunmoo causing the flood unsettled him. Hyunmoo adds that there are two types of people he likes: useful allies and stupid enemies, as smart enemies are bothersome, and useless people are mundane, which applies to the entire random majority. Huiso asks Hyunmoo to realize his duty to the common people as a person with power, to which he reflects on how, when he was part of the random majority, people with power didn't care about them. He says he feels differently now. He wants to experience the luxuries of life, but is unsure if being a famous person with power will be satisfying enough. His goal is not only to reach the stars, but to become one himself. The man wonders just how far Hyunmoo's goals stretch. Knowing the man could never have succeeded in killing him, Hyunmoo chooses generosity. He reminds him that before, words alone would have secured allegiance, but next time, he'll have to bow. The Red Butterfly and her group has been battling goblins in the dungeon all this time. Red Butterfly barely escapes an attack from the Orc Patriarch. The team is ordered to step back and regroup to fight the boss, but the Red Butterfly decides to charge ahead alone, with her group moving quickly to support her. The Orc swings its weapon, but Red Butterfly backflips into the air, landing behind it. Hungrion uses a chain to disarm the Orc, and the guy known as Red Snake uses his Tane skill to freeze the Orc, giving her an opening to slice it into pieces. The commander scolds the red-haired woman for ignoring orders, and threatens disciplinary action. Her teammates step in, defending her, but she apologizes for endangering them. She accepts any punishment, but the commander dismisses her apology, letting her teammates off the hook as well, acknowledging their actions were to protect her. He apologizes for his harshness, admitting he was taken aback by her change from her usual calm demeanor. He thanks her for suppressing casualties, and expresses his honor at witnessing her defeat the Orc in one strike. Red Butterfly feels anxious about her actions, and worries about her actions affecting her teammates. The commander offers a handshake, which she doesn't take. Embarrassed, he orders the team to finish quickly and leave. Outside the dungeon, Lee Ji-tae congratulates Red Butterfly for reaching level 21. She credits her teammates for their support. He expresses pride and asks to speak privately. Inside the car, he asks why she seems stressed, and she admits to making a mistake by ignoring the commander's orders. Jitae reassures her, saying there were no casualties and that it's fine. He wonders if her anxiety is linked to Kang Hyunmoo, which makes him question if she's testing herself to avoid a rut. He shows her footage of the flood and explaining they've been trying to gather information on him but have found nothing. Hoping for insight, he asks if she knows anything, given she managed to fight him for over 30 minutes. Jitae asks if she believes Hyunmoo held back, and she confirms. He was definitely hiding something and not using his full power. As she recalls their fight, tears well up. She had the upper hand in martial arts and abilities, but hallucinations paralyzed her. This revelation leads Jitae to suspect Hyunmoo possesses illusionary skills, either concealed or restricted by certain limitations. The dungeon footage reveals Hyunmoo's sheer power, taking down the boss werewolf in a single strike and handling multiple wolves at once. Both exchange glances, recognizing the sheer abnormality of it all. Jitae wonders how Hyunmoo has grown so much while he remained stagnant. He acknowledges her own progress, surpassing even his early days. Hoping for insight, he asks for her advice, believing she knows the man best. But she apologizes. She doesn't know much about him either. Since Red Butterfly planned to tackle Joldu Dungeon next, he informs her that the Taesung clan is assembling an expedition team to suppress the flood, refine their abilities, and stabilize fixed-type dungeons. He's gathering intel on the dungeon where the flood occurred to ensure the Baekdu Dungeon expedition succeeds next year. Red Butterfly has just passed level 20 and has much experience with variable and high-level dungeons. Although Joldu Dungeon is difficult, considering her remarkable progress, Jitae invite her to join the Joldu Dungeon expedition. As she steps out, her team waits. Red Lotus asks if she's heard about the flood, but her teammate Red Snake asks her about the conversation with Lee Jitae. She tells them everything. Haru asks if the flood was blocked, and Hongrion asks if it was the same person who blocked it. Red Butterfly confirms their suspicion that it was indeed Kang Hyunmoo. They ask if she has been offered a spot in the expedition, and after a brief pause, she admits that she accepted the offer, leaving her team speechless. They hesitantly offer words of encouragement, and she thanks them. Her mind drifts to Hyunmoo, and she becomes determined to stay on top of him no matter how high he rises. Sitting in his car, Lee Jitae turns over a piece of crystal moss, wondering how Hyunmoo got such a high-purity crystal moss, as if he were a giant unknown monster. He receives a call about preparations for the next expedition, and grows eager to acquire the same crystal. Lee Jitae holds a press conference at the clan's headquarters, discussing the flood and his responsibility as a hunter to protect everyone from the monsters. He praises Kang Hyunmoo's efforts to prevent many sacrifices, calling him a gift from fate. Since they don't know much about dungeons and 5-star ranked individuals, Jitae emphasizes the need to collaborate instead of fighting individually. He announces the successful subjugation of the Joldu Dungeon flood, with the Taesung clan taking full responsibility for everyone's safety and supporting the expedition. Listening to the conference, Park Huiso realizes that the responsibility initially lay with Almighty Lotus. However, with their exoneration, if Taesung assumes control, they will lead the entire expedition, monopolizing both the monsters and the valuable items within, effectively claiming everything. His announcement to invite Kang Hyunmoo to the expedition stuns everyone. Hearing this, our guy suspects it's because Jitae failed to uncover his background and strength, leaving him no choice but to rely on the crystal he supplied to climb higher in ranks. Though Lee Jitae feels uneasy, he has no choice but to cast aside his pride and covet Hyunmoo even more in this hell. In the banquet hall of the clan's headquarters, Na Hul stands alone, observing the crowd while glancing at her game, frustrated over her losing team. Just then, Hyunmoo approaches. She notes that he looks different, and he explains that his girlfriend picked out his clothes. Her taste is far better than his. Although Hyunmoo could have arrived in rags and still been respected, he had used a battle helper to master the etiquette and sophistication expected of someone in his position. They're both waiting for Lee Jitae, but he is nowhere to be seen. Na Hul tells Hyunmoo that Jitae is in a meeting with the foreign hunter organization Chrome, who will be dispatching experienced hunters to deal with the flood. Once that's over, Jitae's meeting with them will begin. Hyunmoo assumes her presence means the great unknown clan is joining the expedition, but she clarifies, they refuse to take part in any expedition led by Taesung. She takes a sip of her drink, grimacing at the taste, and comments that Hyunmoo must be aware of the strained relationship between the clans. Before their split, they were unified under the name Lunatic Tigers, a title borrowed from the bar where they often gathered. The Great Unknown has opted out of the expedition to handle external matters, and Na Hul is here because their captain, Park Do-young, refuses to even see Lee Jitae. Hyunmoo muses that if the Lunatic Tigers were revived, they'd be the strongest clan in the nation, but he wonders if he could consume both clans himself. The meeting finally concludes, and Lee Jitae emerges, accompanied by a priest. Hyunmoo wonders if this priest is the same one who survived the flood. On stage, Lee Ji-tae introduces the key figures for the Jeoldu expedition. First, Seo Taekyung, leader of the Gangbuk branch of Almighty Lotus, who will oversee his clan's involvement. Then Kang Hu, leader of the Obsidian team, who will manage Taesung's forces. Embarrassingly, Lee Ji-tae admits that he himself will be taking general command. Na-hul grinds her teeth in frustration. Not only has their clan been excluded without a chance to present their position, but Lee Ji-tae has also taken control of the entire expedition. In anger, she slams another drink, burps loudly, and announces that the Great Unknown will not be participating in the expedition. With that, she storms out. Lee Ji-tae continues, introducing Father Johann Hessner from Germany, a priest who risked his life during a flood in Syria to stabilize the dungeon. Father Hessner is invited as an advisor to the expedition. Hyunmoo recalls Kawaro mentioning the name in Hell, along with Maria Keller, and seeing it in the skeleton's letter. He realizes this is the same John who ensured humanity's survival until the final moment, only to take his own life, leaving those after him with a time-limited existence. Suddenly recalling that it was a cleric, not a priest, who committed suicide, he decides to confirm his doubts using the Admiral lens. But Lee Ji-tae's gaze remains fixed on Hyunmoo. He then announces Priest Johann as the expedition's core, a level 50 healing user with 3 abilities: Healing, Blessing, and the ultimate Veil of Charity, making him a triple caster. A man addresses Hyunmoo as whispers spread, recognizing his presence. He asks Hyunmoo to come with him. Someone wants to meet him. Having waited so long to meet Lee Ji-tae, Hyunmoo eagerly agrees. The man leads Hyunmoo to the elevator, taking him to the penthouse of the clan's headquarters. Inside, Lee Ji-tae stands upstairs, prompting him to climb up. Over a meal, the man asks about his affiliation and training. When our guy says he trained alone, Ji-tae warns that once the nation starts investigating him, he'll need a better cover story. Hyunmoo jokes about the situation, but clan leader is focused and asks directly about the stars his name has been linked to, as well as his current rank. Our bro decides to gather more information on Ji-tae before revealing anything about himself. The system notification reveals Lee Ji-tae's level, 57 with 4 stars, triggering his Hell's Strongest title in frustration. The man places a hand on his shoulder, assuring him there's no need to be nervous. The main dude is stunned. He never even sensed Ji-tae move. Retrieving his hand, he wonders if he overestimated Hyunmoo, given his slow reaction. Ji-tae, surprised by Hyunmoo's sudden stillness, but thinks if he's truly as strong as the rumors suggest, he shouldn't be careless. Hyunmoo asks how old he looks, and Ji-tae correctly guesses early to mid-30s, which creeps out our guy. When Ji-tae questions whether Hyunmoo is really a 5-star, he takes offense, turning the question back on him. But the man clarifies. He wasn't doubting him, just thinking that our hero might be a rank higher, as he seems different from other 5-star ability users. This confirms Hyunmoo's suspicion that higher-ranked stars do exist. Whether 6 or 7 stars, Hyunmoo has undoubtedly surpassed humanity's current level. Yet, he insists he's not that strong, wary of Ji-tae's effortless praise. Out of nowhere, Ji-tae asks if he's read Childhood's End by Arthur Clarke. He describes the Overlords, an advanced species in the novel, who were feared as demons by humanity. In the end, humanity sought their help and transcended to a higher level. Ji-tae draws a parallel between their situation and the Overlord's role, suggesting that both leaders and awakened people guide others, but they themselves cannot transcend. Leaning in close, Ji-tae says he smells the scent of someone who can predict the future, something he senses in himself as well. Hyunmoo realizes Ji-tae is saying they share similar qualities, an ability to foresee what's to come. Ji-tae mentions that the flood in Jeoldu dungeon is just the beginning. Scholars have predicted that dungeons will become increasingly difficult, but soon, an unpredictable change will occur. He asks for Hyunmoo's cooperation, believing that despite the potential darkness behind his facade, they could work together for a greater good. As Ji-tae places his hand on Hyunmoo's shoulder, Hyunmoo asks him if he still shouts out spell or skill names when he uses them. Ji-tae replies that he stopped doing so at the age of 20. Understanding the hint that our guy is not interested in the offer, Ji-tae stands to leave, stating he has something important to do, and bids Hyunmoo goodbye. As Hyunmoo steps into the elevator, he reflects on their conversation. A brief image of Hell's destruction flashes before his eyes, making him reconsider Ji-tae's offer. His jaw tightens, but when he blinks, the image vanishes. Though Ji-tae's determination to win only fuels Hyunmoo's desire to surpass him, he resolves to catch up to him quickly, if Ji-tae is indeed one of the most talented. Back in Hell, Hyunmoo faces a giant grotesque spore rat at level 21. As it charges toward him, he swings his sword, slicing it in half. The spores on its back open, and Hyunmoo quickly shields his face. Inhale them, and he'd be parasitized, doomed to wander the sewers for the rest of his life. His sword transforms into another legendary weapon, the Black Handle Dagger. While it has low to medium stats, its special ability is perfect concealment, enhancing the user's speed. Hyunmoo is relieved he didn't absorb his previous weapon greedily, as this dagger proves more useful in this situation. The dagger has a dark history, used by blind assassins of the Black Cult, religious fanatics who perished at the hands of those who disagreed with them. Although it was intended for diversion, it was never meant to slay great individuals. Meanwhile, Kurson and his team of goblins are preparing potions from crystal moss. Hyunmoo arrives and places the objects he's gathered in front of them, urging them to hurry. The goblins seem tired, but he stresses that they need to finish by tomorrow. The goblins rush to gather the items, but Hyunmoo, slightly concerned, asks Kurson if they might spit in the potion. Kurson reassures him, explaining that the goblins are thankful and will follow his orders. He then shows Kurson a mushroom, causing him to panic. Hyunmoo laughs, revealing that he finally captured the spore rat. He asks if consuming it would cause parasitization, and if this ability can be added to the poison blood. Kurson hesitates, reminding Hyunmoo that they've already added the blood of the hungry ability, but Hyunmoo insists on trying it. Kurson, visibly worried, tells Hyunmoo not to push too hard, noting that he's becoming more reckless and seems to be actively seeking death. He urges Hyunmoo to value his life, as dismissing his own would lead him to view the lives of others the same way. As Hyunmoo roams hell, pondering Kurson's words, he spots a group of ratmen. He leaps onto a wall, performing a few wall jumps before launching a hell dart at them. The dart turns them rabid, causing them to attack each other and consume their own. Hyunmoo snaps his fingers, and they cough up toxic blood, dying instantly, which means his newly added trait is working. Looking to the sky, he sees the timer ticking down. 87 hours left until the next quest, which is in 3 days. If he doesn't clear Joldu Dungeon within a day, he will be dragged back to hell in the middle of the raid. Realizing he can't stop it, he starts brainstorming an excuse for leaving in the midst of it all. Journalists report that Joldu Dungeon remains eerily calm, with no signs of monsters despite Korea's first flood experience. Taesung and Almighty Lotus clans have formed an alliance, creating an expedition stronger than any other, with an average level of 30. The report highlights the presence of strong ability users, including the renowned hero Kang Hyunmoo, as well as Father Johan, an international figure. Though Lee Jitae has already conquered 5-star dungeons and doesn't need this expedition, the experience from the flood will be valuable for next year's northern expedition. Despite fewer members, with Lee Jitae, Kang Hyunmoo, and Father Johan Hessner, who appears to be a 4-star, this team is undeniably all-star. Lee Jitae leads the charge, commanding the team to enter the dungeon. Just then, a man rushes up to inform him of a flood in the Ganwando Chunshin area. Hyunmoo is puzzled, as the flood was expected next year, but after thinking for a moment, he recalls that it was scheduled to occur 10 days after the Joldu Dungeon flood. He wonders if the two events are connected, or if he may have triggered the flood himself. Jitae is advised to postpone the expedition to handle the current flood, but some argue that Chunshin is only a 2-star dungeon, while Joldu's situation could worsen if they delay. There are multiple dungeons showing danger signals, and reinforcements are needed across the board. Though Hanla Dungeon poses little threat, evacuations are already underway. This is Jitae's chance to prove the country can prevent calamities. Captain Oh Dae-sung remains on Jeju Island to maintain order, while Hongryeo confirms they are handling Chunshin Dungeon. With that assurance, the team proceeds with the Joldu Dungeon expedition. Lee Jitae, however, decides to divert to Chunshin himself, as the situation there remains uncertain, especially with so many recent unforeseen events. He leaves the Obsidians behind and appoints Taekyung-soo, the experienced branch manager, to oversee the team. He also advises Taekyung to consult Priest John, who has experience dealing with floods, should they encounter difficulties. Jitae assures Hyunmoo that the Joldu Dungeon will be in his capable hands. Hyunmoo, worried that things might go wrong and jeopardize the reputation he's built, promises Jitae he'll do his best to prevent casualties. Before leaving, he sends Yumin a message to stay safe. Taekyung lights a torch, revealing Ratman charging in. He commands the team to assemble, and they swiftly cut them down. Hyunmoo, observing from behind, admires Almighty Lotus, who he was initially doubtful of, and sees Red Butterfly holding her own alongside Priest Johan. With their combined strength, handling 50 of these creatures seems effortless. A soldier remarks that Hyunmoo looks too relaxed. He casually excuses himself, claiming he's just observing their abilities out of curiosity. The man then asks to see Hyunmoo's skills firsthand, since they've only seen him in action on TV. Hyunmoo picks up a whistle and tells the man that Ratmen have a leader too, and use the whistle to call for help when in danger. The man, having never seen such a thing, doesn't realize that this will soon become common as monsters evolve. He blows the whistle, and the sound of more Ratmen approaching shocks everyone. Taekyung orders the team to brace for engagement. Hyunmoo, however, asks them to rest while he handles it alone. He disappears into the shadows, and the sound of bones cracking echoes, prompting the men to follow despite their fear. As they proceed, their torches reveal the bodies of dead Ratmen. Taekyung calls out to Hyunmoo but hears nothing. He urges the team to stay alert. A black liquid splashes in front of them, and a severed werewolf head appears. Half of Hyunmoo's body glows eerily as he asks if he still seems relaxed. The man who had doubted him earlier apologizes, and Hyunmoo smiles, guiding them forward. Hyunmoo sees Jitae's absence as an opportunity to establish both respect and fear among the team. As they find a quiet spot, Taekyung orders a brief rest. Beside Hyunmoo, the branch manager remarks that he seemed to anticipate the monster's arrival and asks him to share any future instincts. Hyunmoo warns of a werewolf and a group of ratmen 150 meters ahead, with another 60 ratmen approaching from behind. Since neither attack seems immediate, Taekyung decides it's fine for now. Hyunmoo asks Taekyung if the team can find their way, to which the leader explains that the dungeon structure has changed too much to follow old patterns. He notes that this dungeon is severely damaged and warns that flow-type dungeons often transform like this. He taps the crumbling obsidian walls, advising the team to remember the roots. As Taekyung listens for vibrations in the wall, he asks if it's an ambush. Hyunmoo tells him that it's not. The dungeon is still shifting, so he gathers everyone in one place. Our guy gets excited as he sees the ratmen advancing like a tsunami, and Taekyung orders the team to find a secure retreat route. However, when they attempt to retreat, they find no escape, just a dark abyss. A few men fall in as they try to flee. Taekyung sweats in fear as the ratmen approach. Priest Johan commands the team to form a defensive line, casting a spell that envelops the bodyguards in a silvery light. The clash of metal shields and ratmen flesh fills the air, as the ratmen injure soldiers from behind the shields. Johan casts his skill and heals the wounded, and Hyunmoo warns the team to prepare since the defense won't last long. Taekyung urges everyone to hold out until the next structure change and calls for them to help Father Johan in defense. The Obsidian team attacks with bows and arrows, impressing Hyunmoo. As Red Butterfly and the rest of the team charge forward to weaken the enemies, Johan's constant healing keeps them going. Taekyung wonders if they can survive until the next change. A werewolf claws at a shield, and some hunters fall into the abyss as the werewolf steps on shields. A werewolf rushes at Taekyung, but Red Butterfly arrives just in time to protect him. The werewolf, injured at the waist, is too strong for Red Butterfly to fight one-on-one, so she jumps and attacks from the air, wounding its eyes. The werewolf grabs Priest Johan and falls into the abyss with him. Hyunmoo jumps after them, using his legendary grip gloves to slice the werewolf's hand and save the priest. He pulls Johan back up with the gloves' webs, and Red Butterfly catches the priest, pushing him to safety. They look down into the abyss, but Hyunmoo is nowhere to be seen. The team fears that many have fallen and died during the second fight. The branch leader gathers the team and, regretfully, proposes a retreat. Red Butterfly disagrees, convinced that many hunters are still alive in the dungeon. She believes that if they find Hyunmoo, they can clear the dungeon and stop the flood. Afraid of the consequences with Lee Jitai absent and Hyunmoo missing Taekyung, agrees that Red Butterfly might be right. He declares that they won't abandon anyone, not even Hyunmoo, and orders the team to search the entire dungeon. Red Butterfly, lost in thought, reflects on how Hyunmoo resembles someone she once knew. Meanwhile, Hyunmoo falls into the abyss, and as his quest timer runs out, he's transported to hell. He looks up, wondering why the quest hasn't started yet.